Marshall Tucker was a 47-year-old man who lived in Pacifica, California. He worked as a software engineer, which means he made programs for computers. He was really good at his job and came up with many new ideas. Marshall was known for working hard and always trying his best. Marshall had a happy family. He was married to Laney, and they had 2 children. Activia was 14 years old, and Marlboro was 10 years old. The family lived in a nice house near the beach. Marshall loved his family very much and always spent time with them. He often took them hiking on the weekends. They went to places like Maury Point and the Sweeney Ridge Trail. Marshall liked taking pictures of nature, especially the ocean and sunsets. He had a camera and always carried it with him on hikes. Marshall went to Stanford University, where he met his best friend, Nate Harrison. Nate and Marshall stayed close friends even after college. They both worked at the same tech company, which made computer programs for big businesses. In his free time, Marshall liked to read books about technology and science. He also liked watching shows like The X-Files and Star Trek Voyager with his kids. People who knew Marshall said he was kind and helpful. His friends and co-workers admired him for being smart and caring. He always had a smile on his face and was ready to help anyone in need. At work, he was excited about a new project that he thought would change how people use computers. Marshall and his team were working on this project, hoping to present it to the company leaders soon. In the days before his death, Marshall was busy but happy. He talked about the family hiking trip they had planned for the weekend. They were going to visit Point Reyes National Seashore. Marshall was also helping Activia with her science project about marine life. He spent time with Marlboro building a model rocket. Marshall was looking forward to many things. He dreamed of one day starting his own tech company. He also wanted to travel with his family to places like Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Canyon. Marshall Tucker was a good man with big dreams and a loving family. His sudden and tragic death left a huge hole in the lives of those who loved him. On March 23, 2003, the weather in Pacifica, California, was cloudy and cool. At about 8 o'clock a.m., Activia Tucker, Marshall's 14-year-old daughter, woke up and went downstairs to the living room. She was expecting to see her dad getting ready for their planned hike. Instead, she found a terrifying scene that would change her life forever. The living room was a mess. Furniture was turned over, and things were scattered everywhere. In the middle of the room, Activia saw her father, Marshall, lying on the floor. There was blood around his head, and he wasn't moving. Activia screamed and called out for her mother, Laney. Laney Tucker rushed into the room. She saw Marshall and immediately ran to the phone to call 911. Her hands were shaking, and her voice was trembling as she told the operator what had happened. She said it looked like someone had broken into their house and hurt her husband. The police arrived quickly. Officers were on the scene within 10 minutes. Officer Mark Stevens was the first to enter the house. He found Laney crying and holding Activia, who was still in shock. Stevens asked them to step outside while he checked the rest of the house. Officer Stevens noticed the living room looked like someone had tried to make it appear as if a robbery had occurred, but there were too many things that didn't add up. Valuable items, like the TV and Laney's jewelry, were left untouched. Marshall's body was lying near the fireplace. Next to him was a heavy ornate candlestick that was covered in blood. It was clear that this was the weapon used to kill him. The detectives began their work, taking pictures of the scene and collecting evidence. They dusted for fingerprints and looked for any clues that might tell them who had done this. Outside, Laney and Activia were talking to each other. Laney was trying to stay calm for her daughter, but it was clear that she was devastated. Activia was crying and kept asking why someone would hurt her dad. The discovery of Marshall Tucker's body was the start of a complicated and tragic investigation. The peaceful life of the Tucker family was shattered, and the search for the truth had just begun. When the police arrived at the Tucker home on March 23, 2003, they quickly secured the scene. The lead investigators, Detectives Laura Grant and Michael Chua, both experienced and respected, began their work. Detective Grant was 45 years old, with short brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. Detective Chua, 50, was tall and lean, known for his sharp intuition. The living room was a chaotic scene. Furniture was overturned, drawers were pulled out, and items were scattered all over the floor. It looked like someone had tried to make it seem like a robbery. However, some valuable items were left untouched, which made the detectives suspicious. A flat-screen TV, Laney's expensive jewelry, and a new laptop were still in place. Marshall's body was found near the fireplace. His head was badly injured, and there was blood on an ornate candlestick nearby. The candlestick, a heavy piece from their mantle, was clearly the murder weapon. Marshall's wounds showed he had been hit multiple times, indicating a violent struggle. Detective Grant and Detective Chua started their investigation by looking closely at the crime scene. They took photos and collected evidence. They also dusted for fingerprints on the candlestick and other surfaces. Forensic experts arrived to help, wearing white suits to avoid contaminating the scene. They collected blood samples and fibers that might provide clues. The detectives interviewed Laney and Olivia outside the house. Laney, still in shock, tried to explain what had happened. She said she had been asleep and didn't hear anything unusual. Olivia, who found her father, was too shaken to speak much. Officer Mark Stevens, who was the first to arrive, helped keep them calm and took their initial statements. Detective Grant noted that there were no signs of forced entry. The door was intact and the windows were not broken. This suggested that the killer either had a key or was let in by someone inside. This made the detectives think that the killer might be someone Marshall knew. The police used special lights to look for hidden evidence, like footprints or blood traces. They also used a device to check for any recent calls or messages on Marshall's and Laney's phones. They hoped this could lead them to more clues about what happened. The investigation team worked through the day, piecing together what they could from the chaotic scene. They collected all the evidence carefully, knowing that each piece might be crucial to solving the case. Marshall Tucker's murder was a shocking and tragic event in the peaceful town of Pacifica. The detectives knew they had a tough job ahead to uncover the truth and bring justice to Marshall and his grieving family. Laney Tucker, Marshall's wife, was the first suspect. Laney was 41 years old, a creative and quiet person. She loved writing adult fiction, especially stories with violent and intense themes. Over the past year, Laney became deeply involved in a fantasy world she created. Her latest story was about a twisted love affair, and her friends noticed that she started mixing up her fantasy with real life. The police found Laney's behavior odd. She seemed distant and sometimes confused about what was real. Detective Grant and Detective Chua brought her in for questioning the day after Marshall was found. They asked her about her relationship with Marshall and what she was doing the night of the murder. Laney told them she had been asleep and didn't hear anything. She said she loved Marshall and couldn't understand why someone would want to hurt him. The detectives noticed that she seemed nervous, often fidgeting and avoiding eye contact. They asked her about her writing and if she ever felt like her stories affected her real life. Laney insisted that her writing was just a hobby and had nothing to do with Marshall's death. The detectives also looked into Laney's recent activities. They found out that she had been acting strangely at her writing group meetings. Her friends said she talked a lot about her story and seemed obsessed with the idea of a dramatic and tragic love. Some of them even wondered if she was getting too involved in her fiction. During the interrogation, Laney's answers were often vague. She didn't have a clear alibi for the night of the murders, saying only that she had taken some sleeping pills and gone to bed early. The detectives asked if anyone else had a key to their house. Laney said only she and Marshall had keys, which made them even more suspicious. The detectives also checked Laney's phone records. They found several text messages and emails that showed her growing obsession with her story. One message to a friend said, "Sometimes I feel like my characters are more real than my own life." This made the detectives think that Laney might have blurred the lines between her fantasy and reality. Laney's reaction to the interrogation was mostly calm, but she seemed tired and stressed. The detectives couldn't tell that she was hiding something or just overwhelmed by the situation. They decided to keep an eye on her while they continued their investigation, looking for more clues that could either prove her guilt or clear her name. Laney Tucker's behavior and her intense connection to her fictional world made her a prime suspect in Marshall's murder, but the detectives needed more evidence to know for sure if she was responsible. Nate Harrison, Marshall's best friend, was the second suspect. Nate was 39 years old and worked with Marshall at the same tech company. He was outgoing, friendly, and known for his easygoing nature. Nate often visited the Tucker household and was considered part of the family. He shared Marshall's passion for technology and innovation, and they had been close friends since their days at Stanford University. Detective Grant and Detective Chua brought Nate in for questioning. They wanted to understand his relationship with Marshall and Laney better. Nate seemed surprised by the suspicion but cooperated fully with the police. He told them about his long friendship with Marshall and how they worked together on many projects. Nate explained that he had been at home the night of the murder working on a new software project. He provided the detectives with the name of a colleague who could confirm he had been online. working late into the night. Nate seemed genuinely upset about Marshall's death and couldn't believe that someone would kill his best friend. The detectives asked Nate about his relationship with Laney. He admitted that he and Laney had become closer over the past year, especially as she struggled with her writing and mental health. Nate said he often tried to support her and keep her grounded when she got too involved in her fictional world. When asked if he had any romantic feelings for Laney, Nate hesitated but then confessed that he did have feelings for her. He quickly added that he never acted on them and that his loyalty was always to Marshall. The detectives found this interesting and wondered if Nate's feelings for Laney could be a motive. The detectives also checked Nate's phone records and computer activity. They found that Nate had sent many messages to Laney, encouraging her writing and offering emotional support. There was nothing directly suspicious in the messages, but the frequency of their communication raised some questions. Nate's demeanor during the interrogation was mostly calm, but he appeared anxious at times, especially when discussing Laney. He seemed genuinely hurt by the loss of his friend and worried about Laney's well-being. The detectives could not determine if his anxiety was due to grief or something more. Nate's strong friendship with Marshall and his unspoken love for Laney made him a complicated figure in the investigation. The detectives needed more evidence to determine if Nate's feelings had anything to do with Marshall's murder, or if he was simply a supportive friend caught in a tragic situation. Nate Harrison's deep connection to both Marshall and Laney made him an important part of the investigation, and the detectives continued to probe for more details that could clarify his role in the unfolding mystery. On March 27, 2003, 4 days after Marshall Tucker's murder, the weather in Pacifica, California, was rainy and cold. Detective Grant and Detective Chua were at the police station when they received a call about new evidence. An officer had found something unusual while going through Laney's phone records and computer files. The new evidence was a series of emails and text messages between Laney and Nate. These messages were different from the ones the detectives had seen before. They were more personal and hinted at something troubling. In one message, Laney wrote to Nate, "I can't stop thinking about my story. It feels so real. Sometimes I wonder if the only way to end it is to make it real." The detectives felt a chill reading the message. It seemed like Laney was losing her grip on reality. Another message from Nate to Laney said, "If this is what you think has to happen, I'm here for you. Just be careful." This message made the detectives suspect that Nate might have known about Laney's plan to kill Marshall. Detective Grant and Detective Chua quickly went to Laney's house to talk to her again. Laney was cooperative but looked tired and stressed. The detectives showed her the messages and asked what they meant. Laney broke down in tears and said she didn't know what was real anymore. She said that she had been so wrapped up in her fantasy world that she felt like it was taking over her life. While Laney was talking, Detective Chua received a call from the forensic team. They had found traces of Nate's fingerprints on the candlestick, the murder weapon. This new evidence was crucial. It showed that Nate had been in the house and touched the weapon. The detectives went to Nate's house to confront him. It was still raining heavily, making the scene feel even more intense. Nate was shocked to see the detectives but let them in. They showed him the messages and told him about the fingerprints. Nate tried to explain that he had been at the Tucker house many times and could have touched the candlestick before, but the detectives didn't believe him. Detective Grant and Detective Chua arrested Nate on suspicion of being involved in Marshall's murder. Nate protested, saying he was only trying to help Laney, but the evidence was strong against him. The new evidence changed the direction of the investigation. The detectives now believed that both Laney and Nate were involved in Marshall's death. They continued to dig deeper, looking for more clues to piece together the full story. The discovery of the messages and fingerprints brought new light to the case, making it clear that the investigation was far from over. The detectives were determined to find the truth and bring justice for Marshall Tucker. Louise Reed was the third suspect. Louise was 24 years old and lived next door to the Tucker family. She was a social worker known for her compassion and protective nature. She often spent time with Laney, offering support during difficult times. Rumors of a romantic relationship between Louise and Laney added a layer of complexity to the investigation. Detective Grant and Detective Chua decided to bring Louise in for questioning. She seemed surprised but agreed to cooperate. Louise described her friendship with Laney and how she often tried to help her through her emotional struggles. She admitted they were very close but denied any romantic involvement. Louise told the detectives she had been at home the night of the murder, reading a book and watching TV. She said she heard nothing unusual and didn't know anything about Marshall's death until Laney called her the next morning. The detectives checked her alibi, looking for any inconsistencies. During the interrogation, Anna Louise appeared calm and composed. She answered all the questions without hesitation. However, the detectives noticed she seemed particularly concerned about Laney's well-being. When asked about Laney's mental state, Anna Louise said Laney had been struggling with reality and often got lost in her fictional world. The detectives asked Anna Louise if she knew about Laney's plans to kill Marshall. She denied knowing anything and said she would have tried to stop her if she did, but detectives found it hard to believe that someone as close to Laney as Anna Louise wouldn't have noticed something was wrong. The detectives also checked Anna Louise's phone records. They found numerous text messages between her and Laney. Most messages were about everyday things, but some hinted at Laney's emotional turmoil. In one message, Laney wrote, "Sometimes I feel like my stories are more real than my life." Anna Louise replied, "You need to focus on reality. I'm here for you." Detective Grant and Detective Chua continued to question Anna Louise, trying to find any clue that might link her to the crime. They asked about her relationship with Marshall and if she ever felt jealous of him. Anna Louise said she respected Marshall and would never do anything to harm him. Despite Anna Louise's calm demeanor and seemingly solid alibi, the detectives were not entirely convinced of her innocence. They believed she might know more than she was letting on. They decided to keep a close eye on her while they continued their investigation. Anna Louise Reed's involvement in the Tucker family's lives and her close relationship with Laney made her a key figure in the case. The detectives knew they needed more evidence to determine her role, if any, in Marshall's murder. On March 30, 2003, a week after Marshall Tucker's murder, the weather was clear and cool in Pacifica, California. Detectives Grant and Chua received a crucial tip from the forensic team. They discovered a series of incriminating messages on Laney's phone that linked Nate Harrison directly to the crime. These messages showed Nate's encouragement and guidance, proving he knew about Laney's plan to kill Marshall. Laney Tucker, 41, was the murderer. She had become obsessed with a twisted fantasy world she created, believing that Marshall's death was necessary to immortalize their love story. Laney's mental state had deteriorated to the point where she couldn't distinguish between fiction and reality. Her obsession with her violent stories drove her to bludgeon Marshall with an ornate candlestick from their living room. Detectives Grant and Chua realized that Nate Harrison, 39, was not just an innocent bystander. Nate had harbored secret feelings for Laney, and instead of preventing the murder, he manipulated the situation to make sure it happened. Nate believed that with Marshall out of the way, he could finally be with Laney. He provided Laney with the means to carry out the murder and helped her stage the burglary scene. The detectives reviewed the evidence and planned their approach. On the evening of March 30, they drove to Nate's house. The sky was clear, and the air was crisp. They knocked on Nate's door, and he answered, looking surprised to see them. Detective Grant told him they needed to talk about new evidence in the case. Inside, they showed Nate the messages and explained what they had found. Nate's face turned pale, and he tried to deny everything, but the evidence was too strong. Detective Chua calmly placed Nate under arrest for his involvement in Marshall's murder. Nate looked shocked and defeated as the handcuffs clicked around his wrist. Laney was also arrested at her home. She didn't resist and seemed almost relieved. When the detectives told her they knew the full story, she broke down, admitting that she believed Marshall's death was a tragic necessity for their love story. Marshall's family was devastated by the news of Laney and Nate's betrayal. They couldn't understand how the people closest to Marshall could do such a thing. The arrest of Laney and Nate brought a mix of grief and relief. They were heartbroken over the loss of Marshall, but relieved that justice would be served. The clear skies of March 30, 2003, marked a turning point in the case. The detectives had solved the mystery, bringing closure to Marshall Tucker's family and the community of Pacifica. The trial of Laney Tucker and May Harrison began on June 15, 2003, in the Pacifica Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters from local news stations like KTVU and the Pacifica Tribune. The public was eager to see justice served for the murder of Marshall Tucker. The prosecutor, Samantha Klein, 45, was known for her tough and determined nature. She presented a strong case against Laney and Nate, showing the jury the incriminating messages and evidence from the crime scene. Klein argued that Laney's delusional fantasy had led her to murder her husband, and that Nate had manipulated her to fulfill his own selfish desires. On the defense side was Robert Hayes, 50, a seasoned attorney known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind. He argued that Laney was mentally unstable and couldn't fully comprehend her actions. Hayes claimed that Nate's involvement was merely that of a misguided friend trying to help. He emphasized that Nate never directly participated in the murder. During the trial, the victim's family watched with heavy hearts. Marshall's parents, siblings, and children were present every day, hoping for justice. They listened intently as witnesses testified about Laney's erratic behavior and Nate's secret love for her. The emotional toll was evident as they struggled with the betrayal by people they had trusted. After weeks of testimony and arguments, the jury deliberated for 2 days. On July 1, 2003, they reached a verdict. Laney Tucker was found guilty of first-degree murder. Nate Harrison was found guilty of being an accessory to murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdicts were read. Judge Evelyn Carter, 55, delivered the sentences. Laney was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Nate received a 25-year sentence for his role in the crime. Both sentences reflected the severity of their actions and the impact on Marshall's family. The sentencing brought mixed feelings among the victim's family and friends. While they were relieved that Laney and Nate were held accountable, the harsh reality of losing Marshall forever weighed heavily on them. They felt a sense of justice, but the pain of their loss remained. The trial and sentencing had a significant impact on the community of Pacifica. People discussed the case in cafes and on local radio stations like KGO. It served as a grim reminder of how quickly life could change and the importance of mental health awareness. The story of Marshall Tucker's murder and the subsequent trial left a lasting impression on everyone involved. It was a tragic tale of love, betrayal, and the search for justice in a quiet coastal town. After the trial, the community of Pacifica tried to return to normal. The events have left a deep scar, but people were determined to move forward. The Tucker family, especially, faced the challenge of rebuilding their lives without Marshall. Laney Tucker, now serving her life sentence, was transferred to the California Institution for Women. She received psychiatric treatment for her mental health issues. Laney spent her days writing and attending therapy sessions. She expressed remorse for her actions but knew she would never be able to undo the damage she had caused. Nate Harrison, sentenced to 25 years, was incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison. He struggled with guilt and regret, understanding the gravity of his manipulation. Nate's family distanced themselves from him, unable to comprehend his actions. It used his time in prison to reflect on his mistakes, participating in rehabilitation programs and counseling. The community of Pacifica held a memorial for Marshall Tucker every year on the anniversary of his death. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered to remember him and celebrate his life. The memorial became a symbol of the town's resilience and unity. Life in Pacifica slowly returned to normal, but the memory of Marshall Tucker and the lessons from his tragic death remained. The community, united by their shared grief, became stronger and more supportive of one another, determined to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Daisy Winnows was a pillar of the Torrington community, known for her vibrant personality and infectious smile. Widowed after the passing of her beloved husband, Carl, the previous year, Daisy channeled her energy into running a popular flower shop, aptly named Petals and Blooms. Prior to her entrepreneurial venture, she had dedicated years of her life to shaping young minds as a beloved kindergarten teacher at Torrington Elementary School. Despite her professional success, Daisy's personal life was marked by estrangement from her adult children, who resided in different states. The specifics of their fractured relationship remained a mystery to town residents, but Daisy held on to a glimmer of hope that one day they would reconcile. She yearned to witness the formation of their future families, an aspiration that fueled her every waking moment. In January of 1982, as the harsh winter gripped Torrington, Daisy's life was abruptly cut short. The news of her murder would send shockwaves through the tight-knit community, where such heinous acts were unheard of. Residents who once felt safe walking the streets at night now clutched their loved ones a little tighter, haunted by the chilling realization that evil could lurk in their midst. It was a frigid morning on January 12, 1982, in Torrington, Connecticut. The temperature had dropped to -4 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, and the town was covered in snow. Most residents were still indoors, trying to stay warm and catch up on the news. But for one young man, the day would be marked by a horrific discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Wally Nathaniel, a 17-year-old high school senior, had a part-time job as a delivery boy for the local newspaper, the Register Citizen. He had been working for the paper since he was 14 and knew the town and its people well. One of his favorite stops was Petals in Bloom's, a quaint shop run by Daisy Winnows, a 67-year-old widow and former kindergarten teacher. Wally admired Daisy for her cheerful demeanor and kindness and often chatted with her when he dropped off her paper. That morning, Wally arrived at Daisy's Flowers around 9:35 a.m. as usual. He noticed that the shop's door was slightly ajar, which was unusual for Daisy and unusual given the cold weather. Wally knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, calling out Daisy's name. What he saw next made him scream and drop his papers. Daisy was lying on the floor behind the counter, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her arms were almost cut off, and her face was unrecognizable. She had been brutally murdered, apparently with a large knife or a machete. Wally ran out of the shop, terrified, and called the police from a nearby payphone. The murder of Daisy Winnows would become a mystery that baffled authorities. Who would kill a harmless old lady in such a barbaric way? What was the motive behind this senseless crime? And where was the killer? These questions remained unanswered for months until a surprising twist in the case revealed the shocking truth behind Daisy's death. As soon as Wally Nathaniel reported his grisly discovery, the Torrington Police Department sprang into action. Within minutes, several patrol cars and an ambulance arrived at Petals and Bloom's, followed by a forensic team and 2 homicide detectives. The shop was quickly sealed off with yellow tape, and curious bystanders were kept at a distance. The detectives in charge of the case were Michael Harrison and Sarah Jones-Levy, both seasoned veterans with impressive track records. They had worked together for over 5 years and had solved some of the most challenging cases in the state. They were known for their thoroughness, professionalism, and dedication. But even they were not prepared for the horror that awaited them inside the shop. As they entered, they were greeted by a scene of carnage that made them gasp. Daisy Winnows, the victim, was lying on the floor behind the counter, her body mutilated beyond recognition. Her arms were almost severed from her torso, and her face was slashed beyond repair. She had suffered multiple stab wounds to her chest, abdomen, and neck. Blood was everywhere, staining the floor, the walls, and the flowers. The detectives quickly surveyed the scene, looking for clues. They noticed that the shop was in a state of disarray, as if a struggle had taken place. Flower pots were broken, vases were smashed, and petals were scattered. A trail of bloody footprints led from the counter to the back door, indicating that the killer had fled that way. The back door was unlocked, and there were no signs of forced entry. The detectives also spotted the murder weapon, a large cleaver, lying on a table near the door. It was covered in blood and fingerprints. The detectives wondered how the killer had obtained such a weapon and why he had left it behind. They proceeded to collect evidence, taking photos, measurements, and samples. They also interviewed Wally Nathaniel, the delivery boy who had found the body. He was still shaken by the ordeal and could not provide much information. He said he had arrived at the shop around 9:35 a.m. and had found the door slightly open. He had entered calling out Daisy's name and had seen her body. He had run out screaming and had called the police from a nearby payphone. He said he had not seen anyone else around the shop and that he had no idea who would want to kill Daisy. The detectives thanked him for his cooperation and told him they would be in touch. They then contacted the coroner, who arrived shortly after. He examined the body and confirmed that Daisy had died from blood loss due to the multiple stab wounds. He estimated that the time of death was between 9 o'clock and 9:30 a.m., based on the body temperature and rigor mortis. He also noted that Daisy had defensive wounds on her hands, suggesting that she had tried to fight off her attacker. The detectives were puzzled by the motive behind the murder. Daisy Winnows was a well-liked and respected member of the community, with no known enemies or problems. The detectives decided to look into Daisy's personal life, hoping to find some clues. They also hoped to find some witnesses who might have seen or heard something suspicious around the shop that morning. They knew they had a tough case ahead of them, and that time was of the essence. They had to catch the killer before he struck again. The first person that detectives Harrison and Jones-Levy wanted to talk to was Nick Hasselby, Daisy's boyfriend. Nick was a 41-year-old plumber who had met Daisy 6 months ago when he had fixed a leak in her shop. They had hit it off and had started dating soon after. Nick was a handsome and charming man who had a reputation for being a ladies' man. He had been married twice before and had several girlfriends in between. He was also 26 years younger than Daisy, which raised some eyebrows in the town. The detectives wondered if Nick had any motive to kill Daisy. Could he have been after her money or her shop? Could he have been jealous of her relationship with her children or someone else? Could he have been involved in some shady business or had a secret enemy? They decided to find out. They tracked down Nick at his apartment, where he lived alone. They knocked on the door and Nick opened it. He looked surprised to see them and asked them what they wanted. They told him they were investigating Daisy's murder and asked him if he could come with them to the station for some questions. Nick agreed and followed them to their car. At the station, they took Nick to an interrogation room where they asked him about his relationship with Daisy. Nick said he loved Daisy and that they were very happy together. He said he had no idea who would want to kill her or why. He said he had nothing to do with her death and that he was heartbroken by the news. He said he had last seen her the night before, when they had dinner at a local Italian restaurant, and then went back to her place. He said he had left around 11 o'clock p.m. and had gone straight home. He said he had an alibi, his neighbor, who had seen him arrive and leave his apartment. The detectives asked him if he had any problems with Daisy or anyone else. Nick said he had not, and that he got along well with everyone. He said he had no enemies, no debts, no secrets. He said he had a good job and a good life. He said he had nothing to hide. The detectives were not convinced. They pressed him harder, trying to find any inconsistencies or contradictions in his story. They asked him about his past marriages, his previous girlfriends, his financial situation, his hobbies, his friends. They asked him if he had ever been violent or had a criminal record. They asked him if he had ever cheated on Daisy or had any other lovers. They asked him if he had ever argued with Daisy or had any disagreements. They asked him if he knew anyone who might have a grudge against him or Daisy. Nick denied everything. He said he was faithful, honest, and peaceful. He said he had never hurt anyone or done anything wrong. He said he had no enemies, no rivals, no conflicts. He said he only loved Daisy and wanted to be with her. He said he was innocent and begged them to believe him. The detectives were not sure what to think. Nick seemed sincere, but also suspicious. His story was consistent, but also convenient. His alibi was solid, but also shaky. His motive was unclear, but also possible. They decided to keep him under surveillance and to check his background. They also decided to look for other suspects who might have a stronger connection to the crime. While Nick Hasselby remained a prime suspect, the detectives did not rule out other possibilities. They decided to look into the last person who had seen Daisy alive according to the shot's records. That person was Danny Waters, a 24-year-old man who had bought a bouquet of roses from Daisy at 9:15 a.m., just 20 minutes before her body was found. Danny Waters was an odd and lonely figure in the town. He lived with his mother, Carla, who ran a car wash on the outskirts of Torrington. He had no job, no friends, no hobbies. He rarely left his house except to run errands for his mother or to visit Daisy's shop. He was also illiterate, having never attended school or learned to read or write. The detectives were curious about Danny's relationship with Daisy. Why did he buy roses from her that morning? Who were they for? What did they talk about? Did he notice anything unusual or suspicious? They decided to pay him a visit. They drove to the car wash, where they found Carla Waters working. She was a 49-year-old woman with a stern and weary face. She greeted them coldly and asked them what they wanted. They told her they were investigating Daisy's murder and that they wanted to talk to Danny. Carla said Danny was not home and that he had nothing to do with Daisy's death. She said Danny was a good boy who never hurt anyone. She said Daisy was a nice lady who was kind to Danny. She said they had no reason to kill her. The detectives asked Carla if they could search her house, and she reluctantly agreed. They followed her to a small and shabby house next to the car wash. They entered and were struck by the smell of dirt and decay. They searched the house, looking for any clues or evidence. They found nothing of interest except for a cardboard box in the attic, where Danny slept. Inside the box, they found a pile of books, magazines, and newspapers. They were puzzled by this, since Danny was illiterate. They asked Carla about it, and she said Danny liked to look at the pictures and that he collected them as a hobby. The detectives were not satisfied with this explanation. They took some of the books and magazines with them and left. They took them to the station, where they examined them more closely. They were shocked by what they found. The books and magazines were all about flowers, gardening, and nature. They were all marked with notes written in a childish and clumsy handwriting. The notes were simple words such as rose, sun, love. The detectives realized that these were not just pictures, but lessons. Someone had been teaching Danny to read. They wondered who that someone was, and they had a hunch. They checked the dates and titles of the books and magazines and compared them with Daisy's shop's records. They found a match. Every time Danny had bought flowers from Daisy, he had also received a book or a magazine from her. The detectives had discovered a surprising connection. Daisy, moved by Danny's illiteracy, had been secretly tutoring him in her spare time. She had been giving him books and magazines, along with notes and instructions, to help him learn to read. She had been doing this for months without anyone's knowledge. The detectives were amazed by this revelation. They wondered what Daisy's motive was and what Danny's feelings were. They wondered if this was a platonic or romantic relationship and how Carla felt about it. They wondered if this had anything to do with Daisy's murder. They decided to talk to Danny again and to find out more. The case seemed to hit a dead end as the detectives ran out of leads and suspects. Nick Hasselby and Danny Waters had solid alibis, and no other person had a clear motive or opportunity to kill Daisy. The detectives were frustrated and desperate as the media and the public demanded answers. Then, a ray of hope. A forensic technician, working on the fingerprint analysis, found a match. A single print left on the cleaver that was used as the murder weapon belonged to none other than Carla Waters, Danny's mother. The detectives were stunned by this discovery. Carla Waters had not been on their radar as she had no apparent connection to Daisy, except for being Danny's mother. She had also cooperated with the police and had allowed them to search her house. She had seemed indifferent rather than suspicious. The detectives wondered what Carla's motive was and how and why she had pulled off the crime. They decided to confront her and to get some answers. The fingerprint match was a game changer for the detectives. They had a new suspect and a new lead. They decided to dig deeper into Carla Waters' background and to find out what she was hiding. Carla Waters was a 49-year-old woman who had lived in Torrington all her life. She had never married and had raised Danny on her own. She ran a car wash on the edge of town, which she had inherited from her father. She was a quiet and reserved person who kept to herself and rarely socialized. She was also fiercely protective of Danny, who she considered her only reason for living. The detectives also learned that Carla had a troubled past, marked by trauma and abuse. She had become pregnant with Danny at 15. She had never told anyone about it and had given birth to Danny in secret. Carla had developed a twisted form of maternal obsession, bordering on abuse. She had isolated Danny from the world and had denied him any education, socialization, or normalcy. She had forced him to eat only raw barley like a horse and had made him sleep naked in a cardboard box in the attic. She had controlled every aspect of his life and had convinced him that she was the only person who loved him and cared for him. The detectives also learned that Carla had a paranoid and delusional personality fueled by her guilt and fear. She had believed that Danny and Daisy were having sex and that they were plotting to kill her. She had spied on them and had seen them exchanging books and notes. She had misinterpreted their innocent gestures as signs of betrayal and conspiracy. She had become consumed by an irrational jealousy and had decided to take matters into her own hands. The detectives had enough evidence to arrest Carla and to confront her with the truth. They went to her house, where they found her sitting on the couch, watching a replay of Donahue. She looked calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She greeted them politely and asked them what they wanted. They told her they had a warrant for her arrest and that they knew she had killed Daisy. They showed her the fingerprint match and the books and notes they had found in Danny's box. Carla's demeanor changed instantly. She became agitated and defensive and denied everything. She said they had no proof and that they were lying. She said she had nothing to do with Daisy's death and that she loved Danny more than anything. She said Danny and Daisy were the ones who had killed her and that they were trying to frame her. She said they were evil and that she deserved to die. The detectives were shocked by Carla's reaction. They realized that she was mentally unstable and that she had no remorse or regret. They handcuffed her and took her to their car. They also called Danny and told him what had happened. Danny was speechless and could not believe that his mother was the killer. He said he was sorry for Daisy and that he had no idea what his mother had done. The detectives had solved the case, but they had also uncovered a dark and tragic story. A story of a mother's love gone wrong and a son's life ruined. A story of a woman's madness and a town's horror. A story of a flower's beauty and a murder's brutality. The trial of Carla Waters began on March 15, 1982 at the Litchfield County Courthouse. The judge presiding over the case was William Balls, a respected and experienced jurist. The prosecutor was Emily Carter, a young and ambitious assistant district attorney. The defense attorney was Thomas Hines, a seasoned and skillful public defender. The prosecution's case was built on the fingerprint evidence, the books and notes found in Danny's box, and the testimony of Danny and the detectives. Emily Carter portrayed Carla as a cold-blooded and calculating killer who had planned and executed the murder of Daisy Winnows out of a twisted sense of control over her son. She argued that Carla had acted with premeditation and malice, and that she deserved the maximum penalty, life imprisonment without parole. The defense's case was based on Carla's mental state, her abusive past, and her lack of criminal record. Thomas Hines argued that Carla was a mentally ill and traumatized woman who had suffered from a psychotic break and had acted under the influence of a delusion. He pleaded for the jury's mercy and compassion and asked them to consider a lesser charge, manslaughter. The trial lasted for 2 weeks and was filled with dramatic and emotional moments. Daisy's friends and colleagues testified about her kindness and generosity and expressed their grief and outrage. Danny testified about his mother's abuse and his relationship with Daisy and broke down in tears. Carla testified in her own defense and maintained her innocence and her delusion and showed no remorse or empathy. The jury, composed of 6 men and 6 women, deliberated for 3 days. They reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, and the arguments. They weighed the facts, the emotions, and the law. They debated, argued, and voted. Finally, they reached a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict was announced on March 29, 1982 at 4:15 p.m. The courtroom was silent as the jury foreman read the verdict. Then a wave of reaction swept the room. Some gasped, some sobbed, some cheered. Carla Waters showed no reaction and remained expressionless. Judge Balls thanked the jury for their service and pronounced the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He ordered Carla to be taken away and adjourned the court. For Daisy's family, the verdict was a bittersweet closure. They finally learned the truth about their mother's final days and saw justice done. But they also felt the pain of their estrangement and the loss of their chance to reconcile. They hugged each other and vowed to stay in touch. The trial of Carla Waters was over, but the aftermath of her crime was not. The lives of those affected by her actions were forever changed, and they had to find a way to move on. Danny Waters, the son of the killer and the friend of the victim, faced the most challenges. He had been freed from his mother's tyranny, but he had also lost the only person who had shown him kindness and compassion. He had to deal with the trauma of his past and the uncertainty of his future. He had to learn to read, to work, to live. He did not have to do it alone, though. He received extensive therapy and support from the community, who rallied around him and offered him help and hope. He also received a generous donation from Daisy's family, who forgave him and wished him well. He eventually found a job at a local bookstore, where he developed a passion for reading and learning. He also found love and married a young woman who accepted him for who he was. He had a son, whom he named Carl after Daisy's late husband. He never forgot Daisy and kept a picture of her in his wallet. He visited her grave every year and thanked her for changing his life. Detectives Harrison and Jones-Levy, the heroes of the case, also faced some challenges. They had witnessed one of the most tragic and twisted stories of human nature. They had seen the best and the worst of humanity, and they had been affected by it. They continued their careers, but they also sought counseling and support. They vowed to bring justice to victims and closure to their families, but they also learned to cope with their own emotions and stress. They remained partners and became friends. The town of Torrington, the scene of the crime, also faced some challenges. It had been shaken by the events of that winter and had lost some of its innocence and security. It had to deal with the stigma and the sorrow, and to rebuild its reputation and its spirit. It did not have to do it alone, though. It received support and sympathy from neighboring towns and cities who offered their condolences and assistance. It also received recognition and praise from the state and the nation who applauded its resilience and courage. It gradually healed and regained its peace and harmony. Daisy's flower shop, now owned by a young couple who had admired her work, remained a landmark, a silent reminder of the vibrant life cut short and the enduring complexities of the human condition. The case of Daisy Winnows serves as a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and the darkness within the human heart can manifest in unexpected forms. It is a story of love, loss, twisted obsession, and the lengths some are willing to go to in the name of a warped perception of control. It is a story that leaves a lasting impact, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tragedy, an enduring search for truth and justice. In the heart of Boulder, Colorado, nestled among the majestic Rocky Mountains, lived Daniel Molinsky, a 46-year-old professor with a profound knowledge of geology. His life was a tapestry of dedication to science and personal battles. Yet, these struggles never overshadowed his reputation as a brilliant mind and a cherished educator at the University of Colorado. In March of 1988, the small town of Boulder, Colorado was abuzz with excitement as the spring semester began at the University of Colorado. Daniel Molinsky, with his salt and pepper hair and wire-frame glasses, was a familiar face among the faculty. Known for his captivating lectures on the geological wonders of the world, he had garnered a reputation as one of the most respected professors in his field. His office, cluttered with rock samples and geological maps, was a testament to his passion for the subject. But behind the scenes, Daniel's life was far from perfect. He had battled with alcohol addiction for years, and although he had managed to achieve sobriety, the scars of his past still haunted him. His struggle with bipolar disorder added another layer of complexity to his already turbulent life. Yet, despite these challenges, Daniel remained committed to his work and his family. His son Vincent, a bright and ambitious 13-year-old, was attending the Colorado School for the Deaf. Daniel, wanting to create a comfortable space for his son, had embarked on a project to convert the attic into a bedroom. He spent countless hours researching the best materials and meticulously planning the renovation. The attic was filled with boxes of insulation, tools, and blueprints, evidence of Daniel's unwavering love. Even as he navigated the complexities of his own life and his marriage to his wife, Sandra. Amidst this backdrop, Daniel's death struck a chord of mystery. Was it an unfortunate accident, a desperate act of suicide, or something more nefarious? As we delve deeper into this enigma, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery. Together, we will explore the life and untimely demise of Daniel Molinsky. On that fateful day in March 1988, the tranquil city of Boulder, Colorado was basking in the warmth of a clear and calm afternoon. The residents went about their daily routines, unaware that tragedy was about to strike the peaceful neighborhood. Daniel Molinsky, a 46-year-old esteemed professor of geology at the University of Colorado, was engrossed in a home improvement project. He had been diligently working on converting his attic into a cozy bedroom for his beloved son, Vincent, a student at the Colorado School for the Deaf who eagerly anticipated the completion of his new space. As the afternoon sun cast its gentle glow upon the picturesque landscape, Daniel, with his tools in hand, ascended the ladder to install a window in the attic. It was a routine task for him, having spent years honing his handyman skills. However, on this fateful day, tragedy struck with a merciless force. In a sudden and inexplicable turn of events, Daniel lost his footing and plummeted to his untimely demise. The deafening silence of the fall was shattered by the anguished cry of Sandra Molinsky, Daniel's wife and a professor of English literature at the same university. The shock and disbelief that washed over her were palpable as she stood there, frozen in the face of this unimaginable tragedy. Sandra, her heart pounding, immediately dialed emergency services, her trembling fingers struggling to find the right buttons on the rotary phone. The authorities were dispatched with urgency, racing against time to unravel the mysteries surrounding Daniel's death. As news of the tragic incident spread, the tight-knit community of Boulder was left reeling. The local newspaper, the Boulder Daily Camera, covered the story extensively, capturing the collective sorrow that gripped the town. Friends, colleagues, and students mourned the loss of a man who had left an indelible mark on their lives. The investigation into Daniel Molinsky's death began in earnest, with the Boulder Police Department meticulously examining the scene for any clues or signs of foul play. The media attention surrounding the case intensified, with television stations like KMGH-TV and KCNC-TV reporting on the ongoing investigation, hoping to shed light on the enigma that had shattered the tranquility of Boulder. The Boulder Police Department swiftly responded to the distress call from Sandra Molinsky, who had discovered her husband's lifeless body. Led by seasoned investigator Detective Michael J. Miller, known for his meticulousness, the team arrived at the scene prepared to unravel the mysteries surrounding Daniel Molinsky's tragic death. The attic, where the incident occurred, was meticulously examined by the investigators. The room appeared to be in pristine condition, devoid of any signs of struggle or disturbance. The investigators carefully combed through every inch of the space, searching for clues that could shed light on the circumstances leading to Daniel's demise. As they meticulously analyzed the attic, the investigators took note of the window that Daniel had been installing before his fall. They examined the window frame, checking for any signs of faulty installation or structural issues that could have contributed to the tragedy. They also inspected the tools and materials present in the vicinity, looking for any potential hazards or malfunctions. To gain a comprehensive understanding of the events leading up to Daniel's fall, the investigators interviewed Sandra Molinsky and other individuals close to the deceased. They learned that Daniel had been working tirelessly on converting the attic into a bedroom for their son, Vincent. It was an ambitious project, and Daniel had been eagerly preparing the space for his son's arrival. During the interviews, the investigators discovered that Daniel had been struggling with bipolar disorder and was a recovering alcoholic. They delved into his medical history, seeking to determine if these factors played a role in his untimely demise. They reached out to medical professionals, seeking expert opinions on the potential impact of these conditions on Daniel's mental and physical well-being. The investigators, determined to leave no stone unturned, reviewed the evidence collected thus far. They consulted with forensic experts, seeking their insights into the cause of Daniel's fall. Every detail was examined, from the angle of the fall to the presence of any substances that could have impaired Daniel's judgment. With each passing day, the investigation grew more complex as the investigators worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind Daniel Molinsky's tragic death. Sandra Molinsky, a 42-year-old professor of English literature at the University of Colorado, found herself at the center of the investigation into the mysterious death of her husband, Daniel Molinsky. The couple's tumultuous relationship had long been a topic of gossip among their colleagues and friends, with witnesses recalling heated arguments and public displays of discord. One witness, who wished to remain anonymous, claimed to have seen Sandra and Daniel engaged in a heated argument outside a local coffee shop just days before the tragic incident. They were shouting at each other, and Sandra looked furious. The witness recounted, "I couldn't hear the details, but it seemed like a serious disagreement." The police, armed with this information, focused their attention on Sandra as the primary suspect in the case. The investigators delved into the couple's troubled marriage, uncovering a shocking revelation. Sandra had been involved in an illicit affair with Zoe Brunwick, a 22-year-old English literature student at the university. Zoe, a striking young woman with a passion for literature, had captured Sandra's heart and led her down a path of deceit. The affair had been going on for several months, and Daniel, a recovering alcoholic diagnosed with bipolar disorder, had only discovered his wife's infidelity 2 days before his death. Sources close to the couple claimed that Daniel had confronted Sandra about her affair just a day before his tragic fall. The police interrogated Sandra, looking for any signs of guilt or motive. During the intense questioning, Sandra displayed a range of emotions, from anger to sorrow. She vehemently denied any involvement in her husband's death, insisting that their arguments were merely a result of the strain in their marriage. As the investigation continued, the police discovered Sandra's had no alibi for the time of Daniel's fatal fall. They interviewed neighbors, checked surveillance footage, and reviewed credit card statements, leaving no stone unturned. The revelation of Sandra's presence at the house during Daniel's fall added a new layer of complexity to the case. The investigators now had to determine whether Sandra's presence was coincidental or if it held a more sinister meaning. In the investigation into the mysterious death of Daniel Molinsky, a new person of interest emerged: Zoe Brunwick, a 22-year-old English literature student. Zoe's involvement in an affair with Sandra Molinsky, Daniel's wife, raised suspicions and made her a compelling suspect in this puzzling case. At the time of Daniel's tragic fall, Zoe was a student at the University of Colorado, where Sandra also taught English literature. She was a petite and bookish young woman, was known for her love for the novels of erotic novelist Joyce Lehman and her admiration for Sandra's intellect. Zoe's motive for potentially harming Daniel stemmed from her desire to be with Sandra and escape the confines of their secret relationship. The affair had been going on for several months, and the two women had managed to keep it hidden from the prying eyes of their colleagues and friends. It was an illicit love affair that had the potential to ruin both their personal and professional lives. On the day of Daniel's death, Zoe had arranged a secret meeting with Sandra. They had planned to meet at a local coffee shop, the Daily Grind, which was a popular hangout spot for students and faculty alike. The coffee shop was known for its cozy atmosphere and delicious pastries, making it a perfect place for clandestine meetings. The police, aware of this meeting, questioned Zoe extensively about her interactions with Sandra on that fateful day. Zoe displayed a combination of fear and defiance during the interrogation, adding an air of intrigue to the investigation. She adamantly denied any involvement in Daniel's death, claiming that she had no knowledge of his plans or the circumstances surrounding his fatal fall. As the investigation progressed, the police diligently examined phone records, analyzing fingerprints found at the crime scene, and interviewing potential witnesses determined to uncover the truth behind Daniel Molinsky's tragic demise. As the investigation into the death of Daniel Molinsky progressed, the police made a startling discovery. On a day not long after Daniel's tragic fall, they stumbled upon a hidden letter in the possession of Sandra Molinsky, his wife and primary suspect in the case. This letter, written in a state of emotional turmoil, provided a glimpse into the depth of Sandra's affair with Zoe Brunwick, a 22-year-old English lit student. The contents of the letter were both shocking and disturbing. In the letter, Sandra expressed her desire for Daniel to just die, a chilling statement that sent shivers down the spines of the investigators. It also revealed her resentment towards Daniel, blaming him for their son Vincent's deafness. The letter painted a picture of a tumultuous relationship fraught with secrets and hidden desires. The police meticulously analyzed this newfound evidence, hoping it would provide crucial insights into the case. They sought the assistance of forensic experts, hoping to link it definitively to Sandra and establish its authenticity. They also reached out to handwriting analysts to compare the writing in the letter to known samples of Sandra's handwriting. As news of the investigation spread, the media seized upon the sensational nature of the case. Newspapers and television stations across Boulder were abuzz with speculation and theories. Journalists camped outside the Molinsky residence, hoping to catch a glimpse of Sandra or Zoe, who had become local celebrities in their own right. The case took a surprising turn when a witness came forward, claiming to have seen Sandra and Zoe arguing vehemently in a local cafe on the day of Daniel's death. This witness, a regular patron of the cafe, provided a detailed description of the heated exchange, further fueling suspicions of foul play. With each passing day, the investigation into the death of Daniel Molinsky grew more complex. The police painstakingly sifted through the evidence, determined to uncover the truth behind this puzzling case. Vincent Molinsky, the 13-year-old son of Daniel and Sandra, was also present in their Boulder, Colorado home on that fateful day in March 1988. As investigators delved deeper into the case, they considered the possibility that Vincent may have witnessed or inadvertently played a role in his father's death. They meticulously analyzed his movements and actions leading up to the incident, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. During their investigation, the police discovered that Vincent's current bedroom was located just below the attic where his father met his untimely demise. This detail increased the possibility of Vincent witnessing the actual fall. Furthermore, the investigators interviewed Vincent's classmates and teachers at the Colorado School for the Deaf, seeking any information that could shed light on his behavior or potential involvement in his father's death. They found no evidence to suggest that Vincent had exhibited any unusual behavior or had any knowledge of the events transpiring at his home. In fact, Vincent's teachers described him as a diligent and focused student who showed no signs of distress or distraction during the days leading up to his father's tragic accident. They emphasized that Vincent was fully engaged in his studies in ASL, displaying a keen interest in his classes and maintaining a positive attitude. Ultimately, the evidence pointed to Vincent's innocence. The young boy had been engrossed in playing Super Mario Bros. In his bedroom, completely unaware of the tragedy unfolding in his own home. The investigators concluded that he played no role in his father's death. Following an extensive investigation into the mysterious death of Daniel Molinsky, they have honed in on a prime suspect. Sandra Molinsky, a respected professor of English Lit at the University of Colorado, was charged with the murder of her husband. The authorities diligently pieced together the puzzle, uncovering a web of deceit and betrayal. It was revealed that Sandra had been engaged in a secret affair with Zoe Brunwick, a 22-year-old English Lit student. The affair, which had been ongoing for several months, was discovered by Daniel just a day before his tragic fall. This revelation sent shockwaves through the couple's already strained marriage. Witnesses had often seen Sandra and Daniel engaged in heated arguments in public, hinting at the tumultuous nature of their relationship. The police delved into the couple's personal history, discovering that Sandra blamed Daniel for their son's deafness. This revelation added another layer of complexity to the case, as it shed light on the deep-seated resentment Sandra harbored towards her husband. On the day of the incident, Sandra and Zoe had a secret meeting, unbeknownst to Daniel. The police questioned Zoe extensively, her demeanor oscillating between fear and defiance. Her involvement in the affair, coupled with the clandestine meeting, made her a compelling suspect. Crucial evidence emerged when the police discovered a hidden letter in Sandra's possession. The letter, penned by Sandra herself, revealed the depth of her emotional turmoil and her desire for Daniel to just die. It also contained sexually explicit details about her affair with Zoe and her blame towards Daniel for their son's condition. This newfound evidence provided valuable insights into Sandra's mindset leading up to the tragic events. The investigation also focused on Vincent Molinsky, the couple's 13-year-old deaf son. The police initially considered the possibility that Vincent may have witnessed or inadvertently played a role in his father's death. However, after a thorough examination, his innocence became clear. He was merely playing Super Mario Bros. In his bedroom, oblivious to the unfolding tragedy. Through mostly circumstantial evidence, the police built a strong case against Sandra Molinsky. Her motive, the discovery of the affair, combined with the resentment she harbored towards her husband, painted a compelling picture of a woman driven to silence Daniel. The evidence pointed towards a premeditated act planned to appear as an accident. As the case unfolded, the public eagerly awaited the trial of Sandra Molinsky, a trial expected to shed further light on the events surrounding Daniel's death and provide closure for those affected by this tragic loss. The trial of Sandra Molinsky, the primary suspect in the death of her husband, Daniel Molinsky, captivated Colorado in March of 1988. The courtroom, located in the Boulder County Courthouse, a historic building located in downtown Boulder, Colorado, was filled with anticipation as the prosecution and defense presented their cases, each determined to sway the jury in their favor. The prosecution, led by renowned District Attorney Jonathan Thompson, meticulously built his case against Sandra. They presented a series of witnesses, including neighbors who had heard arguments between Sandra and Daniel, as well as friends who had witnessed their strained marriage. The prosecution also introduced evidence of Sandra's affair with Zoe Brunwick, a young English lit student. The defense, represented by Lisabel Thompson, who coincidentally was Jonathan's estranged wife, on the other hand, questioned the credibility of the evidence against Sandra. She argued that the affair between Sandra and Zoe did not prove she was capable of murder. She viscously took apart the police investigation, pointing out inconsistencies and raising doubts about the prosecution's case. As she noted, the evidence was all circumstance and based almost solely on Sandra's failures as a wife. Throughout the trial, the victim's family, including Daniel and Sandra's deaf son, Vincent Molinsky, sat in the courtroom, hoping for justice. Now a 14-year-old student at the Colorado School for the Deaf, Vincent sat quietly, his eyes fixed on his mother. The trial lasted for weeks, with the prosecution and defense presenting their witnesses and evidence. Finally, after careful deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the foreperson stood up and pronounced Sandra Molinsky not guilty. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the family, the defense, and even some members of the public expressed shock and disbelief. The outcome left many questioning whether justice had truly been served. In the aftermath, the trial of Sandra Molinsky became a topic of discussion among legal experts and true crime fanboys alike. The Boulder County Courthouse returned to its usual business, but the echoes of this captivating trial lingered in the minds of all those who followed the case. In the aftermath of the highly publicized trial, the lives of those involved in the Daniel Molinsky case took divergent paths. Sandra Molinsky, the accused wife, now a free woman, faced the arduous task of rebuilding her life and reputation. She made the decision to return to her home country of the United Kingdom, seeking solace in the familiar surroundings of her childhood. Meanwhile, Zoe Brunwick, the young woman at the center of the affair, quietly graduated from the University of Colorado and disappeared from the public eye. Her whereabouts remained unknown, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. As for Vincent Molinsky, the deaf son of Daniel and Sandra, he embarked on a journey of healing and resilience. With the support of the Colorado School for the Deaf, Vincent found solace in his studies and extracurricular activities. He excelled academically, displaying a keen interest in science and mathematics. Vincent's story of triumph over adversity captured the attention of local news outlets, who dubbed him the deaf prodigy. The Daniel Molinsky case, which unfolded in the tranquil town of Boulder, Colorado, in March of 1988, left an enduring impact on the lives of those involved. The trial's outcome, with Sandra Molinsky's acquittal, left many questioning whether justice had truly been served. The echoes of the case continued to reverberate through the community, serving as a reminder of the fragility of human relationships and the complexities of the human psyche. The case of Daniel Molinsky's death remains an enigma. Was it a tragic accident, a desperate act of suicide, or a calculated murder? Despite the acquittal of Sandra Molinsky, the truth remains elusive. Our unfortunate victim is Lacy Cavalcante, a vibrant and outgoing 23-year-old woman. Lacy, originally from Newark, New Jersey, had relocated to Medford, Oregon to escape a difficult family life. Her father's sentence for 75 years in prison for involvement with the mafia had forced her to leave everything behind and start anew in this quaint town nestled in the Pacific Northwest. Lacy found employment as a waitress at Sherry's Cafe and Pies, a popular chain of diners prevalent in the Pacific Northwest during that time. With its cozy ambience and delectable pies, Sherry's Cafe and Pies had become a favorite spot in Medford for locals and tourists alike. Lacy's dedication and hard work had earned her a commendable reputation among the cafe's patrons. However, behind Lacy's professional success, her personal life was filled with drama and intrigue. Lacy's magnetic personality drew the attention of many suitors, but it was her involvement with these two individuals that captivated the imagination. Her fiery personality. She found herself entangled in two separate love affairs, each with its own complexities. The first affair involved a married man, David Cathcart, a 42-year-old man. This clandestine relationship had been ongoing for several months, and the secrecy surrounding it added fuel to the already fiery passion between Lacy and David. The second affair was even more scandalous. Lacy had become romantically involved with a high school cheerleader, Tracy Gartell, an 18-year-old senior. This forbidden love affair had not yet caught the attention of the local gossip mongers, as its revelation would have defied societal norms and shocked the conservative community of Medford. As we delve deeper into this gripping true crime case, we will uncover the intricate web of relationships and the events involved in Lacy's tragic demise. On a sunny afternoon in June 1987, the small community of Medford, Oregon was rocked by a shocking and brutal crime. Lacy Cavalcante, a vibrant 23-year-old woman with a complicated past, met a tragic end in her own apartment. The discovery of her lifeless body sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, leaving everyone wondering who could have committed such a heinous act. It was on that fateful day, June 22, 1987, that Lacy's life was tragically cut short. Her lifeless body was discovered in the bathroom of her apartment by a close friend, Gina Hausman. Gina, who had been visiting Lacy, was overcome with shock and fear upon making the gruesome discovery. She wasted no time in contacting the authorities, her voice trembling as she described the horrifying scene. The Medford Police Department swiftly responded to the call, cordoning off the area and launching a thorough investigation. The crime scene was meticulously examined for any evidence that could lead to the identification of the perpetrator. Detectives interviewed neighbors, friends, and colleagues, hoping to uncover any leads that could shed light on the motive behind this senseless act of violence. As news of Lacy's murder spread throughout the community, local residents were gripped with fear and disbelief. The once peaceful town of Medford found itself thrust into the spotlight of a real-life crime drama. The case garnered attention from local media outlets, who covered every development with a keen interest. In the coming days, the police would work tirelessly to unravel the mysteries surrounding Lacy's death. The search for answers would take them down a winding path of secrets and deceit as they delved into the lives of those closest to the victim. The police, headed by Detective Janet Johnson and Officer Linda Parker, swiftly responded to the distressing discovery of Lacy Cavalcante's lifeless body in her apartment bathroom on June 22, 1987. The small city of Medford, Oregon was shaken to its core by this chilling and calculated act of violence. Upon arrival, the officers were greeted by a harrowing scene. The warm and sunny weather outside contrasted sharply with the bloodstains that marred the bathroom floor. It was immediately apparent that Lacy had met a tragic end, having been shot to death. With a sense of urgency, Detective Johnson and Officer Parker meticulously combed through the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of justice. They carefully collected fingerprints, blood samples, and any other potential leads that could shed light on the events leading up to Lacy's untimely demise. The investigation was not limited to the confines of the crime scene. The dedicated officers reached out to Sherry's Cafe and Pies, where Lacy had been employed as a successful waitress. They interviewed her co-workers and regular customers, hoping to uncover any information that could prove crucial to solving the case. In their pursuit of justice, the police also sought the assistance of the local community. They appealed to Medford residents, urging them to come forward with any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem. The case quickly captured the attention of the media, with newspapers such as the Oregonian and the Mail Tribune publishing headlines that gripped the public's attention. As the investigation progressed, the officers meticulously documented their findings, creating a detailed timeline of events leading up to Lacy's murder. They cross-referenced witness statements, analyzed phone records, and reviewed surveillance footage from nearby establishments, hoping to catch a glimpse of the perpetrator. Days turned into weeks, and the community anxiously awaited news of a breakthrough in the case. The investigation would take unexpected twists and turns, revealing shocking secrets and hidden motives. Medford would never be the same again, forever marked by the tragic events of that fateful June day. David Cathcart, a 42-year-old local business owner who had been romantically involved with the victim, Lacy Cavalcante, emerged as one of the primary suspects in this chilling murder case that rocked the small community of Medford, Oregon in June of 1987. Described as a man of wealth and influence, Cathcart possessed a magnetic charm that had captivated many in his social circle. However, behind his polished facade lay a dark and deceitful nature that had begun to unravel as the investigation unfolded. The police,
led by the diligent detective Janet Johnson and Officer Linda Parker, focused their attention on Cathcart, delving into his possible motives and unraveling the intricate web of his relationship with the deceased. Interviews with friends and acquaintances revealed a complex and tumultuous affair that had ensnared both Cathcart and Cavalcante. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a trove of evidence that pointed to Cathcart's possible involvement in the crime. They meticulously examined phone records, uncovering numerous late-night calls between the suspect and the victim in the weeks leading up to the murder. Witnesses also reported seeing Cathcart near the victim's apartment building on the day of the crime. Adding to the mounting suspicion, the police interrogated Cathcart intensively, employing a combination of psychological tactics and evidence-based questioning. His responses ranged from vehement denial to angry outbursts, with occasional attempts to deflect blame onto others. However, the investigators remained steadfast, determined to uncover the truth behind this heinous act. In their pursuit of justice, the police also reached out to the public for assistance. They released a statement to the local media, urging anyone with information related to the case to come forward. As the days turned into weeks, the pressure on Cathcart intensified. The media spotlight grew brighter, shining a harsh light on his every move. The once charismatic figure found himself thrust into the center of a storm, with public opinion teetering between curiosity and condemnation. Tracy Gartell, an 18-year-old high school cheerleader, emerged as a person of interest in the murder investigation of Lacy Cavalcante. Tracy, a student at Medford High School, was known for her bubbly personality and her involvement in various extracurricular activities. She was a popular figure among her peers, often seen leading the cheerleading squad during football games and participating in school events. However, beneath Tracy's cheerful demeanor, a darker side was uncovered. The police began to suspect that Tracy's involvement with Lacy went beyond a simple love affair. They believed that Tracy's fear of her secret relationship being exposed might have driven her to commit a heinous act. During the interrogation, Tracy's emotions were on full display. She oscillated between anger, fear, and confusion. Her face flushed with frustration as she vehemently denied any involvement in Lacy's murder. However, her body language betrayed her nervousness as she fidgeted with her fingers and avoided eye contact with the detectives. Detective Janet Johnson, a seasoned investigator with an impressive track record, skillfully probed Tracy for answers. She asked about Tracy's relationship with Lacy, trying to uncover any potential motives or conflicts that could have led to the tragic event. Tracy's responses were evasive, often deflecting the questions or providing vague and contradictory explanations. As the interrogation intensified, Detective Johnson presented Tracy with the evidence gathered from the crime scene. The blood-stained bathroom floor, the bullet casings, and the fingerprints found at the scene were all meticulously laid out before Tracy. The weight of the evidence seemed to bear down on her, causing her previously confident facade to crumble. Tracy's demeanor shifted from anger to fear as she realized the gravity of the situation. The police had pieced together a timeline of events, placing Tracy near the scene of the crime on the day of the murder. Witnesses had reported seeing her in the vicinity of Lacy's apartment building, raising suspicions about her involvement. The investigation into Tracy's background revealed a troubled past. The pressure to maintain her popularity and status within the high school social hierarchy weighed heavily on her. The fear of her secret affair becoming public knowledge, something that would destroy her reputation in this conservative community, seemed to have pushed her to the edge. The investigation was far from over, but Tracy's involvement in the murder case had become a focal point. The detectives would continue to dig deeper, uncovering more details and pursuing justice for Lacy Cavalcante. As the investigation into the murder of Lacy Cavalcante intensified, a breakthrough moment occurred when the police stumbled upon a hidden stash of letters in the office of David Cathcart, one of the primary suspects. The discovery of these letters sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Medford, Oregon, as their contents revealed a web of manipulation and deceit that few could have imagined. The date was June 27, 1987, a cloudy and overcast day that matched the somber mood of the investigation. Detective Janet Johnson and Officer Linda Parker, leading the charge in solving this heinous crime, meticulously combed through David Cathcart's office, hoping to find any clue that could shed light on Lacy's murder.
As they sifted through stacks of papers and files, their eyes fell upon a seemingly innocuous wooden box tucked away in a corner. Opening the box, the detectives were greeted by a trove of letters, each one meticulously preserved with a sense of secrecy. The letters, written in Lacy's elegant handwriting, painted a picture of a woman caught in a dangerous game of love and manipulation. In these missives, apparently written to herself, Lacy detailed her tumultuous affairs with both David Cathcart and Tracy Gartell, the high school cheerleader who had also become entangled in her web of deceit. The letters revealed a calculated plan, carefully orchestrated by Lacy herself, to pit her two lovers against each other. She played them like puppets, manipulating their emotions and desires to suit her own twisted agenda of a sordid sexual competition. The extent of her control over these two individuals was both chilling and disturbing. As news of the letters spread, the community of Medford was left reeling. The local newspaper, the Medford Tribune, ran front-page headlines proclaiming love and deceit unraveled. Lacy's letters exposed dark secrets. The town's residents, already shocked by the brutal murder of Lacy, now found themselves grappling with the realization that the victim they thought they knew had a hidden side. The police, armed with this newfound evidence, intensified their investigation into David Cathcart and Tracy Gartell. They sought to uncover the truth behind Lacy's death and bring the puppet master to justice. In the relentless pursuit of justice, the investigation into the tragic murder of Lacy Cavalcante took an unexpected turn as the focus shifted to a seasoned private investigator named Michael Hampe. Hampe, known for his reputation as a truth seeker, had been hired by none other than Rebecca Cathcart, the wife of David Cathcart, one of the primary suspects in this chilling case. The police, driven by their commitment to uncovering the truth, meticulously interrogated Hampe, delving into his possible motives and his role in the murder. Hampe, a man of calm demeanor, stood firmly in his innocence, maintaining his dedication to uncovering the truth behind Lacy's untimely demise. During the intense questioning, Hampe revealed that his involvement in the case stemmed from Rebecca Cathcart's suspicions about her husband's extramarital affair with Lacy. The discovery of this affair had sent shockwaves through the Cathcart household, prompting Rebecca to seek the services of a private investigator to uncover the truth. Hampe, armed with his intuition and a steadfast commitment to his profession, embarked on a thorough investigation. He meticulously combed through phone records, financial transactions, and witness statements, leaving no stone unturned in his quest to uncover the truth. As the investigation progressed, Hampe stumbled upon a series of incriminating letters hidden in David Cathcart's office. These letters, penned by Lacy herself, revealed a web of manipulation and deceit, a sexual competition she had created that had ensnared the lives of those involved. The letters provided a chilling glimpse into the mind of a master manipulator, leaving the police astounded by the depth of deception. In his pursuit of justice, Hampe collaborated closely with Detective Janet Johnson and Officer Lindberg, sharing his findings and insights. Together, they meticulously pieced together the puzzle, connecting the dots between the suspects and the evidence. As the investigation into Lacy Cavalcante's murder continued, the police, armed with the newfound evidence and Hampe's unwavering determination, inched closer to unraveling the truth. With each passing day, the web of deceit surrounding this case began to unravel, revealing a shocking climax. In a stunning turn of events, David Cathcart, the lover of the late Lacy Cavalcante, accused his own wife, Rebecca Cathcart, of orchestrating the murder that rocked the community in June of 1987. The small city was left reeling as the truth behind this chilling crime came to light. The investigation took an unexpected turn when David Cathcart, a 42-year-old influential figure in the community, revealed the dark secrets hidden within his seemingly perfect marriage. In a dramatic confrontation, David claimed that his wife, Rebecca, had been manipulating him for years, using him as a pawn in her sinister quest for power and control. In a press conference set up outside of his sizable house, he accused his wife with the memorable words, "My wife is the puppet master." The police, armed with this shocking revelation, meticulously gathered evidence against Rebecca Cathcart. They uncovered a motive that sent shockwaves through the community, a desire to protect her own reputation in Medford's social scene and to salvage her seemingly perfect marriage. Detective Janet Johnson and Officer Linda Parker, leading the investigation, worked tirelessly to gather evidence that would support David's claims. They meticulously combed through the couple's financial records, phone records, and personal belongings, searching for any piece of evidence that would link Rebecca to the murder. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a hidden stash of letters in David Cathcart's office. These letters, meticulously saved by Rebecca, revealed a web of manipulation and deceit that left the investigators astounded. The letters detailed Rebecca's plan to murder Lacy Cavalcante, her husband's mistress and the woman who threatened to expose her secrets. The police wasted no time in arresting Rebecca Cathcart, leaving her stunned by the swift turn of events. The evidence against her was overwhelming, leaving little doubt in the minds of the investigators. The victim's family, already devastated by their loss, was left in disbelief as they struggled to comprehend the sinister truth that had been lurking beneath the surface. The trial that followed the shocking murder of Lacy Cavalcante was a highly emotional and closely watched affair. The prosecution, led by attorney Lawson Chambers, meticulously built a compelling case against Rebecca Cathcart, the accused mastermind behind the murder plot. Chambers, known for his tenacity and unwavering pursuit of justice, presented a wealth of evidence to support the charges. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was filled with tension and raw emotions. The victim's family, friends, and members of the community anxiously awaited the verdict, hoping for closure and justice for Lacy. The defense, represented by attorney Robert P. Rothbury, fought fiercely to protect Rebecca's innocence, arguing that the evidence against her was circumstantial and insufficient. During the trial, the prosecution called a series of witnesses to the stand, including Detective Janet Johnson and Officer Linda Parker, who had led the initial investigation. They testified about the meticulous gathering of evidence and the discovery of the hidden stash of letters in David Cathcart's office, which revealed Rebecca's manipulation and deceit. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. They called several character witnesses who testified to Rebecca's good standing in the community and her seemingly perfect marriage to David Cathcart. They argued that the evidence against Rebecca was weak and that there could be other plausible explanations for the crime.
The jury, consisting of 12 individuals carefully selected for their impartiality, deliberated for several days. Their task was not an easy one, as the evidence presented was complex and required careful consideration. Finally, on a tense Friday afternoon, the verdict was delivered. Rebecca Cathcart was found guilty of orchestrating the murder of Lacy Cavalcante. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, tears, and disbelief. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the lives of the victims' friends and family, forever altering their perception of the world. The sentencing, however, left some divided. Rebecca Cathcart was sentenced to only 6 years in prison, a decision that sparked controversy and debate. Some felt that the punishment was too lenient given the severity of the crime and the manipulation involved. Others believed that justice had been served as the evidence against Rebecca was not as concrete as in other cases. Following the dramatic conclusion of the trial, the lives of those involved in the case took unexpected turns. David Cathcart, once a wealthy and influential man, found himself divorced and estranged from his former wife, Rebecca Cathcart. The scandalous affair and subsequent murder had shattered the illusion of his seemingly perfect life. David, now a broken man, retreated from the public eye, seeking solace in the quiet corners of his own remorse. Tracy Gartell, the high school cheerleader entangled in a love affair, faced a difficult road to redemption. Her once promising future was marred by the scandal, and she struggled to regain her footing. The small town of Medford, known for its tight-knit community, watched as Tracy attempted to rebuild her life, facing the judgment and whispers of her peers. The scars left by her involvement in the affair served as a constant reminder of the consequences of her actions. As the years passed, the small community of Medford slowly moved on from the shocking events of June 1987. The local Sherry's Cafe and Pies, where Lacy had worked, became a symbol of the tragedy that had unfolded, forever etched in the memories of the townspeople. The wounds left by the events of June 1987 may have healed, but the scars remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking justice. And so concludes our episode of True Crime Case Files. This chilling tale of manipulation, deceit, and murder serves as a reminder that darkness can lurk behind the most seemingly perfect facades. Isabella "Bella" Sanderson, a vibrant and ambitious 30-year-old woman, owned a small clothing boutique in the city of Pittsburgh, California back in June of 2004. Her boutique, known simply as Bella's Boutique, was a hidden gem in the local fashion scene. With an impeccable taste for fashion and a fierce sense of independence, Bella became a fascinating figure in the community. As the summer of 2004 unfolded, Bella's life was filled with dreams and aspirations. She constantly envisioned a future brimming with success and adventure. Despite being 4 months pregnant, she remained determined to make her boutique thrive. Friends and family admired her unapologetic confidence, but little did they know that it would eventually lead to her untimely demise. To complicate matters further, Bella's own mother-in-law, Sophia, harbored a deep resentment towards her. Sophia, a woman known for her controlling nature, couldn't stand Bella's independent spirit. She saw her as a threat to the family's legacy and was determined to eliminate her from their lives. On that fateful night in June, Bella's life took a tragic turn. The details surrounding her murder were as chilling as they are perplexing. The investigation into her death would uncover a series of shocking revelations, shedding light on the dark secrets that lay beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic suburban community. In the quiet neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California, tragedy struck on a sunny day in June. Isabella "Bella" Sanderson, a vivacious 30-year-old boutique owner, met a gruesome end that would send shockwaves through the community. Bella was known for her impeccable taste and fierce independence. Her small clothing boutique was a local favorite, attracting fashion enthusiasts from all walks of life. She had a reputation for stirring up drama, with her unapologetic confidence and ambitious dreams of success and adventure. At the time of her death, Bella was 4 months pregnant, adding an even more heartbreaking layer to the already devastating story. On that fateful day, Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., made a horrifying discovery. The warmth of the sun was in stark contrast to the chilling scene that awaited him. As he approached his middle-class residence, fear and confusion washed over him. He stumbled upon the lifeless body of his beloved wife, her once vibrant spirit extinguished. The shock of the discovery was palpable. Robert, overwhelmed by grief, was unsure of how to process the gruesome scene before him. The police were immediately called to the scene, and the investigation into Bella's death began. In June of 2004, media outlets were quick to pick up on the tragedy. Local newspapers, such as the Pittsburgh Gazette, dedicated coverage to the case. Television news stations, like KGO Channel 7 News, aired special reports detailing the events surrounding Bella's murder. The community was captivated by the unfolding story, desperate for answers and justice. As investigators combed through the evidence, they discovered a complex web of relationships that would become the focal point of their investigation. The love triangle between Bella, her husband Robert, and his secret lover quickly became a central piece of the puzzle. The tension between these individuals, combined with the involvement of Bella's own mother-in-law, added an even darker twist to the already tragic tale. With each passing day, the details of Bella's untimely demise became more and more publicized. The community mourned the loss of a vibrant young woman, while simultaneously grappling with the shocking and disturbing nature of the crime. The investigation continued, fueled by the determination to bring justice to Bella and her unborn child. The swift arrival of the police at the scene of Bella Sanderson's tragic demise in June 2004 sent shockwaves through the quiet, middle-class neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, wasted no time in assessing the chilling crime scene. As they approached the serene surroundings where Bella's lifeless body lay, a sense of urgency filled the air. The investigators were met with a gruesome sight. Traces of blood stained the once peaceful neighborhood, serving as a stark reminder of the violence that had unfolded. The method of murder, 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, added an eerie layer of mystery to the already perplexing case. With a meticulous attention to detail, the police meticulously combed the area for any potential clues. Utilizing advanced forensic techniques, they gathered evidence that would prove crucial in piecing together the puzzle of Bella's untimely demise.
Every inch of the crime scene was scrutinized, from the surrounding houses and streets to the smallest fragments of evidence. Local residents were interviewed, their statements providing valuable insights into the events leading up to Bella's tragic end. The investigators delved into Bella's personal life, exploring her relationships and potential motives for her murder. Rumors of a love triangle involving Bella's husband and her own mother-in-law began to circulate, adding a layer of complexity to the case. As the investigation progressed, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. News outlets across picked up the story, captivated by the twists and turns of this real-life tragedy. The small clothing boutique owned by Bella became a focal point, with reporters flocking to the scene to capture the essence of the vibrant woman whose life had been cut short. In their pursuit of justice, Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez left no stone unturned. They consulted experts in ballistics, forensics, and psychology, hoping to gain further insights into the mind of the killer. The search for answers became a race against time, as the public demanded answers and Bella's loved ones sought closure. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Robert Sanderson Jr., the husband of the late Bella Sanderson. Robert, a charming and influential figure in the community, was the owner of a local bike shop that had gained popularity among cycling enthusiasts in Contra Costa County. As the police delved deeper into the case, they sought to unravel the enigma surrounding Robert's potential involvement in the murder of his wife. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, meticulously interrogated Robert. The room was tense, with the air heavy with anticipation as they probed for any signs of deceit or motive. Robert's demeanor fluctuated throughout the questioning, displaying a range of emotions that left the investigators both intrigued and suspicious. During the intense interrogation, Robert's responses were a mix of anger and calmness, further adding to the complexity of the case. The investigators were aware of his reputation for manipulation, and they were determined to uncover any hidden truths that lay beneath his charismatic facade. They delved into his personal life, exploring his relationship with Bella and any potential motives that could have driven him to commit such a heinous act. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a series of text messages exchanged between Robert and a mysterious individual known only as MC. The messages hinted at a clandestine affair, raising questions about the nature of Robert's relationship with Marco Castrati, a regular at the bike shop. Marco, a prominent figure in the community and the owner of a renowned Italian restaurant, had been a big investor in Robert Jr.'s bike shop. With each passing day, the investigators grew more determined to crack the case wide open, bringing justice to the memory of Bella Sanderson. The small community of Pittsburgh was left reeling from the shocking events that had unfolded within its peaceful confines. As the investigation continued, the police painstakingly gathered evidence, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. Sophia Sanderson, age 65, the mother of Robert Jr., became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder of Bella Sanderson. A woman of refined taste and extravagant lifestyle, Sophia was no stranger to the glitz and glamour of the luxurious life. However, beneath her polished exterior lay a web of secrets and hidden motives. As the police delved into Sophia's connections to the crime, they discovered a tangled web of financial straying. Despite her outward appearance of wealth and luxury and her pension as a retired nurse, Sophia was burdened by a mountain of credit card debt. Her extravagant spending habits had caught up with her, and she found herself in a desperate situation. It was during this time of financial turmoil that Bella's murder occurred. The police began to question whether Sophia's mounting debt had driven her to commit such a heinous act. They meticulously combed through her financial records, searching for any evidence that could link her to the crime. As they dug deeper, the investigators uncovered a series of suspicious transactions in the weeks leading up to the murder. Large sums of money had been withdrawn from Sophia's bank account, with no clear explanation as to where the funds had gone. The police traced these transactions to a secret offshore account, raising even more questions about Sophia's involvement in Bella's death. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police discovered a hidden compartment in Sophia's closet. Inside, they found a collection of newspaper clippings detailing the scandalous affairs of wealthy individuals in the area. These clippings, meticulously organized and annotated,
hinted at a secret side to Sophia's already dark life. The police theorized that Sophia had become obsessed with the lives of the rich and famous, using their scandals and misfortunes as inspiration for her own twisted game. They believed that Bella's murder was not only a means to protect her family's reputation, but also a way for Sophia to live out her own twisted fantasies. As the investigation continued, the police dug deeper into Sophia's past, uncovering a trail of deceit and manipulation. They discovered that she had a history of using her charm and cunning to manipulate those around her, bending them to her will. This revelation only fueled their suspicions of her involvement in Bella's murder. In the coming weeks, the police would delve further into Sophia's connections and unravel the truth behind Bella's tragic death, riding hard on the shocking twists and turns of the investigation. As the investigation into the tragic murder of Isabella "Bella" Sanderson intensified, the authorities meticulously combed through the evidence, determined to uncover the truth behind this heinous crime. Every detail, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was scrutinized in their pursuit of justice. One crucial piece of evidence that emerged was the discovery of 2 tickets to a matinee showing of the renowned musical Cats. These tickets, bearing the names of Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., and a man known as Diego, were found at the crime scene. The investigators immediately recognized the significance of this find, as it provided a potential lead in their quest to unravel the mystery surrounding Bella's untimely demise. The date on the tickets indicated that the fateful outing was planned for June of 2004. As the investigators delved deeper into the connection between Robert Jr. and Diego, they discovered that Diego was the older brother of Bella. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, raising questions about the nature of their relationship and the potential motives behind Bella's murder. Furthermore, the investigators meticulously examined the theater where the Cats' performance was scheduled to take place. The historic Fox Theater in downtown Oakland, known for its stunning architecture and grandeur, had been the chosen venue for this particular matinee. The theater's management cooperated fully with the authorities, providing access to surveillance footage and assisting in the identification of potential witnesses. As the authorities worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle surrounding Bella's murder, they remained steadfast in their commitment to uncover the truth. The discovery of the Cats' tickets had opened up a new avenue of investigation, shedding light on the intricate web of relationships and potential motives that surrounded this chilling crime. Diego Bosque, the older brother of Bella Sanderson, emerged as another suspect in the investigation. Diego, known for his fiery temper and unwavering loyalty, held deep suspicions about Bella's marriage to Robert Jr. and harbored a strong disdain for Sophia. However, the police uncovered shocking evidence that would send shockwaves through the community. During the course of their investigation, the police discovered secret, explicit text messages exchanged between Diego and Robert Sanderson Jr., Bella's husband. These messages revealed a clandestine sexual relationship between the 2 men, a relationship that had been kept hidden from everyone, including Bella. The messages were very graphic in nature and described late-night rendezvous in various parks around Contra Costa County. The revelation of this secret relationship sent shockwaves through the community, as it challenged the perception of loyalty and betrayal. Friends and family members were left dumbfounded, struggling to reconcile the image they had of Diego and Robert Jr. with the shocking reality that had been uncovered. The local media quickly picked up on the story, with headlines screaming about the scandalous affair that had emerged in the midst of Bella's murder investigation. The police, now faced with the task of unraveling the complex web of relationships surrounding Bella's death, intensified their interrogation of Diego. The 3rd grade vocabulary level was employed, ensuring that the questions were easily understood by all parties involved. Diego, torn between protecting his sister's memory and his own lover, was visibly shaken during the questioning. His anger and desperation were palpable as he attempted to navigate the treacherous waters of the investigation. As the investigation continued, the police delved deeper into the connection between Diego and Robert. They analyzed phone records, cross-referenced text messages, and interviewed acquaintances who might shed light on the nature of their relationship. The evidence was meticulously gathered, ensuring that no stone was left unturned in the pursuit of justice. The community of Pittsburgh, California, was left reeling from the shocking revelations that had come to light.
The murder of Bella Sanderson had not only exposed a twisted love triangle, but had also shattered the illusion of a close-knit community. The once peaceful neighborhood now found itself at the center of a media frenzy, with reporters from local news outlets descending upon the area to cover the sensational story. The shocking truth behind Bella Sanderson's murder in June of 2004 was finally revealed, shedding light on a twisted plot that unfolded in the quiet city of Pittsburgh, California. After months of meticulous investigation, the police unraveled an intricate web of deception, leading to the arrest of Sophia Sanderson, the 65-year-old mother-in-law of the victim. Driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and pride, Sophia orchestrated a cunning plan to eliminate both her son's lover and his sister, her daughter-in-law. The motive behind this heinous act was rooted in Sophia's deep resentment towards Bella's intrusion into her family's affairs and her son's illicit sexual relationship with Diego Bosque, Bella's older brother. Sophia's desire to maintain control over her son, Robert Jr., and safeguard her family's reputation played a pivotal role in her decision to carry out this macabre scheme. With Diego stealing away her son for secret sex and Bella's pregnancy, threatening her son's financial support, Sophia saw no other way to protect her carefully constructed facade. The police uncovered a trail of evidence that pointed directly at Sophia's involvement in the murder. The discovery of a meticulously planned alibi, consisting of a fake doctor's appointment and a series of phone calls to create a false timeline, revealed the calculated nature of her actions. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby store captured Sophia purchasing a gun, the same weapon used to end Bella's life. As the authorities closed in on Sophia, her carefully constructed facade crumbled before her eyes. The shock and disbelief on her face as she was arrested mirrored the feelings of the community, who had known her as a respected member of society. As the community of Pittsburgh tries to make sense of this tragic event, the memory of Bella Sanderson will forever be etched in their minds. Her vibrant spirit and ambitious dreams will serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the hearts of those closest to us. The courtroom was abuzz with anticipation as the trial of Sophia Sanderson, accused of orchestrating the murder of her son's lover and wife, reached its climax. District Attorney Tabitha Quasimodo, with her commanding presence and sharp legal mind, led the prosecution's case against Sophia. The defense, represented by attorney Ariel Cruz Roja, fought tirelessly to cast doubt on the evidence presented. The trial unfolded against the backdrop of a nation captivated by true crime stories. In the courtroom, attorney Quasimodo meticulously laid out the evidence against Sophia. She presented phone records showing suspicious conversations between Sophia and an unidentified individual on the day of the murder. The prosecution also introduced the murder weapon, a .45 caliber handgun, which was traced back to Sophia's possession. The ballistics expert testified that the bullets recovered from Bella's body matched those fired from the gun. To further strengthen their case, the prosecution called upon witnesses who had observed Sophia's erratic behavior leading up to the murder. A neighbor testified that they had seen Sophia lurking around Bella's boutique, casting a sinister shadow over the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. The defense, however, argued that these witnesses were unreliable and their testimonies should be dismissed. As the trial progressed, the courtroom was filled with tension and emotion. Bella's grieving family, clad in black, listened intently to every word uttered. The victim's friends, still grappling with the shock of their loss, sought solace in each other's presence. The media, hungry for sensational stories, swarmed the courthouse, capturing every moment for the evening news and front-page headlines. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Sophia Sanderson was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, sorrow, and closure. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the lives of all involved, forever altering the course of their futures. In the aftermath of the trial, true crime geeks debated the motives and psychology of Sophia, dissecting her actions and attempting to understand what drove her to commit such a heinous crime. The story of Bella Sanderson's murder became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most seemingly idyllic lives. Following the conclusion of the trial, Robert Jr., Diego, and Sophia were left to grapple with the daunting task of moving forward. The events surrounding Bella's murder had forever altered their lives, leaving them to navigate a complex web of emotions and rebuild their shattered worlds. Robert Jr., once the charismatic owner of a bike shop, found himself at a crossroads. The trial had exposed the dark secrets of his past, including his illicit relationship with Diego. The revelation had left him questioning his own sexuality and struggling to come to terms with the consequences of his actions. With his reputation tarnished and his business suffering, Robert Jr. faced an uphill battle to regain the trust of his community. Diego, Bella's older brother, was consumed by guilt and remorse. His secret sexuality relationship with Robert had not only betrayed his sister, but also implicated him in the murder plot. The trial had laid bare his darkest secrets, leaving him isolated and ostracized from his family, who did not accept his sexuality. With no one to turn to, Diego found solace in therapy and support groups, working tirelessly to rebuild his life and find redemption. Sophia, the mastermind behind the murder plot, faced the harsh reality of her actions. The trial had shattered her carefully constructed facade, exposing her as a manipulative and calculating individual. Her once extravagant lifestyle had crumbled under the weight of her debt, leaving her in prison. With no one left to protect her, Sophia retreated into a life of isolation and regret. As the months turned into years, the wounds left by Bella's murder slowly began to heal. The victims' families, torn apart by grief, found solace in support groups and counseling. The community rallied around them, offering a shoulder to lean on and a listening ear. Slowly but surely, life in Pittsburgh returned to a semblance of normalcy. And thus, the twisted love triangle that ensnared Isabella Bella Sanderson came to a close. In the city of Pittsburgh, California, in June of 2004, a story of passion, betrayal, and tragedy unfolded. Bella's life was tragically cut short, leaving behind a community forever changed by the darkness that lurked within their midst. Join us next time on True Crime Case Files as we delve into another chilling tale of human nature's darkest depths. Annabeth Rinaldi, a 39-year-old marketing executive, resided in Round Rock, Texas, a fast-growing suburb of Austin. Known for her love of adventure and passion for travel, Annabeth was a vibrant and outgoing woman. Her colleagues respected her for her creativity and determination. Despite her busy schedule, Annabeth always made time for her friends and family, especially her husband Percy and daughter Patricia, cherishing every moment spent with her loved ones. In August of 2010, Annabeth's life seemed to be at its peak. She had just returned from a memorable vacation in Hawaii with her family, capturing stunning photos of the picturesque beaches and lush landscapes. Her social media posts about the trip, particularly on Instagram, where she had 300,000 followers, garnered attention and envy from her friends and followers. Annabeth's infectious smile and zest for life were evident in every picture she shared. As a marketing executive at Adele, Annabeth was highly regarded for her innovative ideas and ability to connect with clients. Her colleagues often sought her advice, and she was always willing to lend a helping hand. Annabeth's dedication and hard work had earned her a reputation as a rising star in the industry. Annabeth's last known activity was a post on her Instagram account where she shared a picture of a delicious meal she had prepared for her family. The post was time-stamped just hours before her tragic demise. Friends and followers flooded the comments section with messages of admiration and envy, unaware of the dark cloud that loomed over Annabeth's life. The circumstances surrounding Annabeth's death would remain shrouded in mystery. Authorities launched an investigation to uncover the truth behind this tragic event. As we delve deeper into this case, we will explore the evidence, key suspects, and the events leading up to that fateful night. Stay tuned as we continue our investigation into the mysterious death of Annabeth Rinaldi. On the scorching night of August 24, 2010, tragedy struck the quiet McMansions of Round Rock, Texas, when the life of Annabeth Rinaldi, a vibrant and outgoing 39-year-old marketing executive, came to a sudden and tragic end. The events that unfolded that night would send shockwaves through the community and leave her loved ones devastated. It was not a typical summer evening in Round Rock, with temperatures still at a sweltering 103 degrees even at the late hour of 10 p.m. The heat seemed to reflect the intensity of the situation that was about to unfold.
Annabeth's husband, Percy Raldi, had just returned home from a business trip to Dallas, looking forward to spending a quiet evening with his wife and their teenage daughter, Patricia. As Percy entered their spacious kitchen, he was met with a scene that would haunt him forever. There, lying lifeless on the cool tile floor, was Annabeth. Her usually vibrant and expressive eyes were now vacant, her body motionless. Overwhelmed by grief, Percy's initial reaction was a mix of disbelief and anguish. He couldn't comprehend how his beloved wife, full of life and laughter, could be gone in an instant. In a state of shock, Percy immediately reached for his phone and dialed the emergency services. The voice on the other end of the line tried to calm him down, assuring him that help was on the way. But as Percy waited for the authorities to arrive, his mind raced with questions. What had happened to Annabeth? Was it an accident or something more sinister? Gossip of the tragedy spread quickly through the sterile streets of Round Rock. Neighbors gathered outside the Rinaldi residence, their faces etched with concern and disbelief. The local media soon caught wind of the story, and reporters descended upon the scene, setting up cameras and microphones to capture every detail. The name Annabeth Rinaldi became synonymous with tragedy, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. The Round Rock Police Department wasted no time in responding to the distress call on that fateful August night in 2010. Detective Marcus Slew, a seasoned investigator with an impressive track record, took charge of the investigation. Accompanied by his dedicated team, they arrived at Annabeth Rinaldi's residence, ready to unravel the mysteries that lay within. The scene that greeted them was both perplexing and unsettling. Annabeth's home, located in the rapidly growing suburb of Round Rock, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. The sweltering summer heat of Texas in August hung in the air, adding an extra layer of intensity to the already grim atmosphere. The investigators meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. The house, normally filled with the vibrant energy of a loving family, now felt hauntingly empty. There were no signs of forced entry, leaving the detectives puzzled as to how the perpetrator gained access to the residence. The attention to detail displayed by Detective Slew's team was commendable. They meticulously documented every item, photographing and cataloging each piece of evidence. The walls, adorned with family photographs and memories, seemed to hold secrets of their own. The detectives carefully examined them, searching for any hidden clues that might shed light on the events that led to Annabeth's untimely demise. As the investigation progressed, the focus shifted to the kitchen, the very place where Annabeth's life had been tragically cut short. The detectives discovered an open carton of Bluebell Rocky Road ice cream, Annabeth's favorite treat. It was here that the chilling truth was revealed. The ice cream had been laced with a lethal dose of cyanide, a deadly poison that had claimed Annabeth's life. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, leaving residents in disbelief. The media, always hungry for a sensational story, quickly picked up on the case. The Round Rock Police Department found themselves under immense pressure to solve the case and bring justice to Annabeth Rinaldi. Percy Raldi, a 48-year-old financial advisor and husband of the late Annabeth Rinaldi, found himself at the center of a chilling crime investigation. As the prime suspect in his wife's untimely demise, Percy's life took a dramatic turn as the evidence began to stack against him. Known for his calm and collected demeanor, Percy Raldi was a respected member of the community. Besides his financial advisory work, Percy was also a dedicated high school football coach, instilling discipline and teamwork in his players. Friends and colleagues described him as a man of integrity, always willing to lend a helping hand. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic life, a darker side emerged. Investigators uncovered a series of text messages between Percy and an unknown individual, suggesting a possible extramarital affair. The content of these messages was closely examined to determine if they held any relevance to the case. During the police interrogation, Percy's emotions fluctuated between anger, denial, and confusion. He vehemently proclaimed his innocence, insisting that he had nothing to do with his wife's tragic demise. The detectives pressed him for an alibi, but Percy's recollection of events on the night of August 24, 2010, seemed hazy and inconsistent. As the investigation deepened, the authorities were leaving no stone unturned.
They requested Percy's phone records, financial statements, and even conducted a thorough search of his home. Forensic experts meticulously analyzed the crime scene, looking for any trace of evidence that could link Percy to the cyanide-laced ice cream that claimed Annabeth's life. As the investigation continues, the focus remains on Percy Raldi. Will the evidence prove his guilt, or is there more to this story than meets the eye? Only time will tell as the truth slowly unravels, providing answers to the questions that haunt the community. As the investigation into the tragic death of Annabeth Raldi unfolded, another potential suspect emerged: Patricia Raldi, her rebellious teenage daughter. Known for her fiery temper and rebellious nature, Patricia frequently clashed with her parents over curfews and responsibilities. The tension within the Raldi household had been palpable in the weeks leading up to Annabeth's untimely demise. Friends and classmates of Patricia described her as a headstrong young woman, unafraid to challenge authority and push boundaries. The police, with their keen eye for detail, discovered that Patricia had been having sex with multiple boys and had been experimenting with various drugs. In the sweltering August of 2010, the police turned their attention to Patricia, exploring the possibility of her involvement in her mother's murder. They meticulously questioned her, seeking any clues that could lead them to the truth. Patricia's reaction to the interrogation was a volatile mix of anger and frustration, as she vehemently denied any knowledge or participation in her mother's untimely demise. During the investigation, the police uncovered a series of text messages exchanged between Patricia and her friends. These messages revealed a troubled teenager struggling to find her place in the world. Patricia confided in her friends about her strained relationship with her parents, expressing her frustration and anger. However, amidst the turmoil, she also spoke of her deep love for her family and her desire to protect them. As the investigators delved deeper into Patricia's life, they discovered that she had been attending therapy sessions to cope with the challenges she faced. She had been seeking guidance and support to navigate the complexities of adolescence. The police, recognizing the importance of mental health in their investigation, reached out to Patricia's therapist for further insight. The therapist shed light on Patricia's emotional state, describing her as a teenager grappling with the pressures of school, relationships, and the ever-changing world around her. The therapist emphasized that Patricia's rebellious behavior was a manifestation of her struggle to find her identity and establish her independence. As the investigation into Patricia Raldi's potential involvement in the tragic death of her mother continued, the community held its breath, waiting for the truth to be unveiled. The once peaceful streets of Round Rock were now filled with whispers and speculation, as everyone wondered who was responsible for this heinous crime. The focus of the investigation swiftly shifted to David Michaelson, a 32-year-old graphic designer who worked alongside Annabeth Raldi at Dell in Round Rock, Texas. David was known among his colleagues for his charming personality and flirtatious nature, often lightening the mood in the office with his quick wit and playful banter. However, beneath his seemingly affable exterior, a darker side lurked. It was revealed that Annabeth had filed multiple reports of sexual harassment against David, detailing his explicit jokes and inappropriate comments. The tension between them had been palpable, creating a toxic work environment that Annabeth desperately sought to escape. This revelation shed light on a potential motive for David's involvement in her untimely demise. As the detectives delved deeper into David's background, they uncovered a disturbing secret. It appeared that David had developed a secret sexual obsession with Annabeth, fixating on her vibrant personality and undeniable beauty. The evidence pointed to a dangerous infatuation that had escalated over time, culminating in a tragic outcome. During the interrogation, David's demeanor shifted from his usual charm to a mix of guilt, denial, and desperation. He attempted to distance himself from the crime, claiming that his interactions with Annabeth were harmless and consensual. However, the mounting evidence against him painted a different picture. The investigators meticulously analyzed David's alibi for the night of Annabeth's death. It was discovered that he had been jogging in close proximity to her residence, raising suspicions about his potential proximity to the crime scene. Furthermore, a search of his personal belongings revealed a collection of disturbing items, including photographs and handwritten notes that showcased his unhealthy fixation on Annabeth. The police worked tirelessly to connect the dots, building a compelling case against David Michaelson. They reached out to other employees at the marketing firm, uncovering additional instances of his inappropriate behavior towards female coworkers. The testimonies painted a chilling portrait of a man who used his position of power to intimidate and manipulate those around him. The case served as a stark reminder of the importance of addressing workplace harassment and the devastating consequences it can have. The true mastermind behind the tragic death of Annabeth Rinaldi had finally been revealed. Patricia Rinaldi, the 18-year-old daughter of the victim, was identified as the perpetrator of the heinous poisoning death of her mother. Driven by a toxic combination of anger and resentment towards her mother, Patricia took drastic measures to gain control over her own life, ultimately leading to the untimely demise of her beloved mother. The investigation took a dramatic turn when new evidence was unearthed, shedding light on Patricia's involvement in the murder plot. The evidence, discovered in Annabeth's office, provided a crucial breakthrough for the dedicated team of investigators. It was a fateful day that would forever alter the course of this chilling case. However, as the police delved deeper into the evidence, they uncovered a disturbing connection between Patricia and David Michaelson, a graphic designer and Annabeth's co-worker. David, known for his charming personality and history of sexual harassment complaints, had long harbored an unhealthy sexual obsession with Annabeth and felt that if he couldn't have her, no one would. The investigation also revealed that David had manipulated Patricia, exploiting her feelings of resentment and insecurity to his advantage. In a twisted bid to win Annabeth's affection, he convinced Patricia to carry out the murder, using her deep-seated anger as a weapon. The motive behind Patricia's actions becomes clear as the investigation unravels. She viewed her mother as an obstacle to her freedom and independence, a suffocating presence in her life. Patricia's toxic emotions drove her to poison her mother's beloved Bluebell Rocky Road ice cream, a brand that held deep sentimental value to Annabeth. This calculated act of betrayal was a desperate attempt to escape the clutches of her overbearing mother and take control of her own destiny. The arrest of Patricia and David sent shockwaves through the community. The revelation of Patricia's involvement left Annabeth's family shattered, struggling to come to terms with the unimaginable truth. The facade of control that David had meticulously crafted was shattered, exposing the true extent of his obsession and manipulation. As this harrowing case reaches its conclusion, the tragic tale of Annabeth Rinaldi serves as a stark reminder that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places, even within the confines of a suburban home in Round Rock, Texas. The trial of Patricia Rinaldi, the daughter accused of poisoning her mother, Annabeth Rinaldi, with cyanide-laced Bluebell Rocky Road ice cream, captivated the courtroom. District Attorney Rachel Albert meticulously presented the evidence, painting a vivid picture of the heinous crime committed on that fateful August night of 2010. The prosecution called upon witnesses, including forensic experts who testified to the presence of cyanide in the victim's system. They presented chilling details of the toxic substance hidden within the innocent treat that Annabeth had enjoyed countless times before. The courtroom was filled with gasps as the evidence was revealed, leaving no doubt as to the cause of death. Defense attorney Stephen Marco fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the evidence presented by the prosecution. He argued that Patricia's rebellious nature and strained relationship with her mother did not necessarily make her a murderer. Marco highlighted the lack of direct evidence linking Patricia to the crime, emphasizing the importance of reasonable doubt. The trial lasted for weeks, with both sides presenting their case, dissecting every piece of evidence, and calling upon witnesses to testify. The emotional toll on Annabeth's family was evident as they sat in the courtroom, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and despair. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the forepersons stood to deliver the verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Patricia Rinaldi, guilty of first-degree murder, the foreperson declared, the words echoing through the courtroom. The gasps and sobs that followed were a testament to the impact of the verdict. Annabeth's family, already devastated by her tragic death, found some solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. Patricia, once a rebellious teenager, now faced the consequences of her actions. At the sentencing hearing, the courtroom was filled with family members, friends, and supporters of both the victim and the defendant. The judge, taking into account the severity of the crime and Patricia's age at the time of the murder, handed down a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a harsh sentence for so young a perpetrator. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of the sentence sank in. Annabeth's family, although relieved by the verdict, knew that no punishment could bring back their beloved wife and mother. They left the courtroom with a mix of emotions, grateful for the closure the trial provided, but forever scarred by the tragedy that had befallen them. In the wake of the highly publicized trial, the lives of those involved were forever altered. The shocking revelations and emotional roller coaster of the courtroom proceedings left an indelible mark on everyone touched by this tragic case. As the dust settled and the media frenzy subsided, each person had to find their own way to navigate the difficult path of moving forward. Percy Raldi, once a pillar of strength, now carried the weight of grief on his shoulders. He sought solace in the support of family and friends, leaning on them for strength during this trying time. Patricia Raldi, the daughter who had been at the center of the shocking revelation, struggled to come to terms with her role in her mother's death. The guilt and remorse weighed heavily on her young shoulders, and she sought therapy to help her process her emotions. Patricia's journey towards healing was a long and arduous one, as she grappled with the consequences of her actions and the impact it had on her family. Detective Marcus Slew, the lead investigator who had tirelessly worked to unravel the truth, found himself reflecting on the case long after the trial had ended. The haunting nature of the crimes committed and the manipulation that had taken place left a lasting impression on him. He dedicated himself to advocating for victims' rights and ensuring justice was served in every case he encountered. As August of 2010 came to a close, the annals of true crime history had recorded another chilling chapter, and the name Annabeth Rinaldi would forever be etched in the collective memory. The tragic story of Annabeth Rinaldi's murder captivated a community and exposed the dark underbelly of human emotions. Round Rock, Texas, a once peaceful suburb, became the backdrop for a chilling crime that shattered lives. As we close this chapter, we are left contemplating the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. Our victim, David Lindes, was a 45-year-old high-powered attorney who resided in Gilbert, Arizona. Despite his outwardly successful life, David had a reputation for engaging in extramarital affairs and neglecting his wife, Clara. Behind closed doors, their marriage was marred by tension and resentment. Clara, a successful marketing executive at the age of 42, had dreams of a loving and faithful husband, but her reality was far from it. David was known for his high-profile cases, often making headlines in local newspapers and even appearing on television talk shows as a legal expert. His sharp mind and persuasive arguments made him one of the most sought-after attorneys in the state of Arizona. However, his professional success came at a cost to his personal life. The summer of 2010 was particularly scorching in Gilbert, with temperatures reaching record highs of almost 120 degrees. As the heat wave gripped the town, tensions within the Lindes household escalated. Clara, a petite woman with fiery red hair, found solace in her work, pouring her energy into her marketing campaigns. She often sought refuge from the sweltering heat at the local Starbucks, sipping on iced lattes as she brainstormed ideas. The Lindes residence, a sprawling two-story house on Oak Street, was a symbol of their wealth and social status. Neighbors often caught glimpses of David's expensive sports car parked in the driveway, a testament to his success. However, behind the facade of luxury, a storm was brewing. David's extramarital affairs had become an open secret among the couple's circle of friends. Rumors circulated about his rendezvous with dozens of young interns from his law firm, and whispers of infidelity echoed through the halls of the local country club. Clara, a woman of grace and poise, silently endured the humiliation, hoping that one day her husband would change. And so, the stage was set for a gripping tale of love, betrayal, and murder in the sweltering summer of 2010. It was a scorching summer day in July 2010 in the affluent suburb of Gilbert, Arizona. The sun beat down mercilessly, making the asphalt sizzle and the air feel heavy. In the midst of this sweltering heat, tragedy struck the Lindes household. Clara Lindes, a 42-year-old marketing executive, had just returned home from a long day at work. As she stepped into the coolness of her air-conditioned kitchen, she was greeted by a sight that would haunt her forever. Her husband, David Lindes, lay on the floor, his body convulsing violently. Clara's heart raced as she rushed to David's side. Panic and disbelief consumed her as she frantically searched for a pulse, but it was too late. David was already gone. Tears streamed down her face as she reached for the phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she described the horrific scene. The sound of sirens blaring in the distance snapped Clara back to reality. The paramedics rushed into the house, their faces masked in a mix of concern and professionalism. They quickly assessed the situation, but it was clear that there was nothing they could do. David was beyond saving. News of the shocking crime spread like wildfire through the close-knit community of Gilbert. Neighbors whispered to each other, speculating about what could have led to such a gruesome end. The local newspaper, the Gilbert Gazette, ran a front-page article the next day, capturing the attention of readers across town. In the days and weeks that followed, the media frenzy surrounding the case grew. Television crews from the local news stations set up camp outside the Lindes residence, capturing every detail for their nightly broadcasts. As the investigation continued, the police interviewed friends, family, and acquaintances, trying to piece together the events leading up to David's death. Rumors swirled, painting a picture of a troubled marriage and a wife pushed to her breaking point. But amidst the speculation and gossip, the truth remained elusive. The local police quickly responded to the emergency call, rushing to the Lindes residence in Gilbert, Arizona. Detective Janet Tierkreis and Officer Rebecca Sanchez were assigned to investigate the tragic and mysterious death of David Lindes. As they arrived at the scene, the detectives were greeted by the sweltering Arizona heat, the sun beating down on the quiet suburban neighborhood. The Lindes house stood tall and imposing, its walls painted a crisp shade of white, contrasting with the vibrant green of the well-manicured lawn. With a sense of urgency, Detective Tierkreis and Officer Sanchez entered the house, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. As they made their way to the kitchen, they couldn't help but notice the pristine condition of the residence. It was as if every surface had been meticulously cleaned, presumably with Lysol, America's #1 cleaner, leaving no trace of the crime that had occurred. Upon reaching the kitchen, the detectives were met with a faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The room was spotless, the countertops gleaming under the fluorescent lights. A lone coffee mug sat on the table, still warm to the touch. Detective Tierkreis carefully picked it up, examining it for any signs of tampering. Using a pair of gloves, Officer Sanchez began to meticulously search the surrounding area, looking for any potential evidence. She carefully inspected the coffee machine, taking note of the brand and model. It was a Keurig, a popular brand known for its convenience and ease of use. A small pile of used coffee pods sat nearby, evidence of David's morning routine. The detectives continued their search, meticulously documenting every detail. They examined the cabinets, the drawers, and even the trash bin, hoping to find any clue that could shed light on the mysterious circumstances surrounding David's death. But there was nothing. No fingerprints, no signs of struggle, no indication of how the poison had been introduced into the coffee. As the investigation continued, Detective Tierkreis and Officer Sanchez knew they had their work cut out for them. They would need to delve deeper into David's personal life, uncovering any secrets or motives that could explain the tragic events of that fateful day in July. The investigation into the death of David Lindes took a dramatic turn when his wife, Clara Lindes, emerged as the primary suspect. Clara, a woman of charm and charisma, had long harbored resentment towards her husband for his infidelity and neglect. The police wasted no time in interrogating Clara, hoping to uncover the truth behind David's demise. Clara, a 42-year-old marketing executive, was known for her impeccable style and grace. She had a reputation for being a strong and independent woman, but behind closed doors, her marriage to David was far from perfect. Neighbors often heard heated arguments coming from their home, and rumors of David's extramarital affairs had circulated within their social circle. The police, led by Detective Janet Tierkreis and Officer Rebecca Sanchez, meticulously questioned Clara, delving into her motives and emotions. Clara's responses were a mix of anger and calculated calmness, revealing glimpses of a woman pushed to her breaking point. During the interrogation, Clara recounted the events leading up to David's death. She claimed that on the day in question, she had prepared her husband's morning coffee as she always did. She mentioned that David had a habit of leaving his coffee unattended while he attended to work emails in their home office. Detective Tierkreis and Officer Sanchez carefully examined the crime scene, searching for any evidence that would either support or refute Clara's claims. The house showed no signs of forced entry, and the scene was eerily clean, as if someone had meticulously wiped away any traces of the crime. The investigators collected samples from the coffee machine, the cup, and the surrounding area, hoping to find any traces of cyanide. The media frenzy surrounding the case intensified, with news outlets reporting on every update and speculation. The Lindes residence became a hub of activity, with reporters and curious onlookers gathering outside. The case captivated true crime obsessives, drawing comparisons to other real-life crime dramas that had gripped the public's attention in the past. As the investigation into Clara Lindes continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind David's death. They meticulously analyzed every piece of evidence, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of justice. Dr. Dolly Lner, a close friend of Clara's and a well-known scientist who studied harmful substances, found herself under intense scrutiny as the investigation unfolded. The police, armed with evidence and suspicions, turned their attention to Dr. Lner, seeking to uncover the truth behind her relationship with the victim, David Lindes. Dr. Lner, a middle-aged woman with short, silver hair and glasses, had been a trusted confidant of Clara for many years. She had always been there to offer advice and support, but now her loyalty was being called into question. The investigators discovered that Dr. Lner had been involved in a secret decades-long affair with David, a fact that shocked Clara and added another layer of complexity to the case. As the police dug deeper, they found that Dr. Lner had access to dangerous substances through her work as a toxicologist. Cyanide, the deadly poison that claimed David's life, was one of the substances she had knowledge of and could potentially acquire. The investigators began to wonder if Dr. Lner had used her expertise and access to poison David. During her interrogation, Dr. Lner revealed a startling revelation. She disclosed that her 3 children, who were believed to have been conceived through in vitro fertilization, IVF, were actually David's biological offspring, conceived through regular sex. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation, as it raised questions about the extent of Dr. Lner's involvement with David and the possible motives she may have had for harming him. The investigators delved into Dr. Lner's personal life, searching for any clues that could shed light on her relationship with David and her potential involvement in his death. They discovered that she had been a close friend of David's for many years, and their affair had been a well-kept secret. The investigators also found evidence suggesting that Dr. Lner had obtained the cyanide used to poison David, further strengthening the case against her. As the investigation continued, the media caught wind of the sensational story unfolding in the quiet suburb of Gilbert, Arizona. News outlets began reporting on the case, speculating on the motives and actions of both Clara and Dr. Lner. The small town was thrust into the spotlight, with reporters flocking to the scene to cover every detail of the investigation. In the middle of their investigation, the police stumbled upon a very important clue. It was a hot day, the kind that makes you feel like you're melting, the mercury reaching 118 degrees, when they found something buried in the Arizona soil. It was a hidden stash of papers in a small vial. The papers were full of information that shed light on the complicated web of lies surrounding David's murder. The police were quick to react to this new discovery. They carefully examined the papers, which were covered in dirt and had started to crumble in the dry heat. The documents revealed a whole bunch of secrets that had been hidden away for a long time. One of the papers was a letter from David to his lawyer, discussing a secret offshore bank account. The police now had a lead to follow. They contacted the bank and requested information about any suspicious transactions that might be connected to David or his wife, Clara. Another document found was an email exchange between David and a mysterious person named X. The police were intrigued by this new lead and started digging deeper. They traced the IP address of the sender and found that it was from a computer in a coffee shop in Tucson, 120 miles away. The police immediately went to the coffee shop and asked the employees if they remembered anything unusual happening around the time of David's murder. One barista remembered a woman who seemed nervous and kept looking over her shoulder. She had ordered a cup of coffee to go and left in a hurry. The police now had a description of the woman and started searching for her. They looked through security camera footage from nearby stores and found a video of the woman getting into a car with a license plate that matched Clara's car. It seemed like Clara was involved in the murder after all. Lisa Romanov Lindberg, a woman of peculiar habits and the secretary of the late David Lindes, had become the focus of intense scrutiny in the ongoing investigation into his untimely demise. As the police delved deeper into the mysterious circumstances surrounding the murder, they uncovered a web of deceit and obsession that pointed directly at Lisa. Lisa, a woman in her late 30s, was known for her eccentricities who believed she was the descendant of both the Lindberg baby and Anastasia Romanov. She was also known for her unwavering loyalty to David. She had been his secretary for over 5 years, managing his appointments and organizing his affairs. But beneath her seemingly loyal exterior lurked a dark secret, an affair with David that had been going on for years. The police, armed with newfound evidence, interrogated Lisa with a keen eye for details. They discovered that Lisa's obsession with her own lineage had driven her to desperate measures. She believed that by eliminating Clara, David's wife, she could secure her own position in his life and fulfill her delusional fantasy of becoming the sole object of his affection. During the interrogation, Lisa's demeanor fluctuated between anger and moments of unsettling calmness. She vehemently denied any involvement in David's murder, claiming that she loved him and would never harm him. However, the evidence against her was mounting. The police uncovered a series of incriminating text messages exchanged between Lisa and David in the days leading up to his death. These messages revealed the depth of Lisa's obsession and her plans to eliminate Clara from David's life. In a shocking turn of events, the police also uncovered a secret room in Lisa's apartment filled with photographs and newspaper clippings of Clara and David. The room resembled a shrine, with candles and handwritten notes expressing Lisa's twisted love for David. In a shocking turn of events, the police identified and arrested the person responsible for the murder of David Lindes, the high-powered attorney from Gilbert, Arizona. After an extensive investigation that spanned several months, the truth finally came to light, revealing a tale of betrayal and revenge. Clara Lindes, the wife of the victim, was revealed to be the true murderer. Clara, a 42-year-old marketing executive, had endured years of infidelity and neglect from her husband. Fueled by a potent mix of anger and a desire for liberation, Clara took matters into her own hands, putting an end to her husband's life. The police, led by Detective Janet Tierkreis and Officer Rebecca Sanchez, painstakingly pieced together the puzzle that led them to Clara's doorstep. Their investigation uncovered a hidden cache of incriminating documents buried beneath the scorching Arizona soil. These documents, along with a vial of cyanide, shed light on the intricate web of deceit surrounding David's murder. The arrest of Clara came as a shock to both her and the victim's family. Throughout the investigation, Clara had maintained a facade of calculated composure, but in the face of her own actions, her composure crumbled. The victim's family, torn between grief and relief, grappled with the knowledge that justice had been served. This case captivated the local community and garnered significant media attention. News outlets such as the Gilbert Gazette and the Arizona Daily Star covered the story extensively, highlighting the details of the investigation and the shocking revelation of Clara as the murderer. As the story of David Lindes' murder comes to a close, the community of Gilbert, Arizona, is left to reflect on the dark side of human nature. This chilling tale serves as a reminder that even in the most affluent suburbs, secrets and motivations can lead to unimaginable crimes. The trial that followed the shocking murder of David Lindes was a big event in Gilbert, Arizona. In July 2010, people from all over the town came to the courthouse to witness justice being served. The courtroom was filled with emotions as the prosecutor, Farragley, presented a strong case against Clara Lindes, the wife of the victim. Farragley told the jury that Clara had a motive for killing her husband. She explained how Clara had endured years of infidelity and neglect, and how that had driven her to take matters into her own hands. The prosecutor also showed evidence of premeditation, explaining how Clara had obtained the poison and carefully planned the murder. Clara's defense attorney, Michael Mad Dog Stevens, fought hard to cast doubt on the evidence and Clara's state of mind. He argued that Clara had been pushed to her breaking point and that her actions were a result of the years of mistreatment she had suffered. He called witnesses who testified to Clara's good character and her struggles in the marriage. Finally, after much deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom fell silent as the foreperson stood up and pronounced Clara Lindes guilty of first-degree murder. Gasps filled the room, and Clara's family and friends wept at the news. The victim's family, although relieved that justice had been served, couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness for the loss of their loved one. Clara Lindes was sentenced to death for the murder of her husband, the judge. Taking into account the circumstances of the crime and Clara's lack of remorse, deemed the sentence appropriate. The courtroom emptied, and the news of the verdict spread throughout Gilbert. People discussed the trial over coffee at the local diner and debated whether the punishment fit the crime. In the end, the trial of Clara Lindes captivated the town of Gilbert in July 2010. It was a tragic and shocking case that left a lasting impact on the community. As the media covered the story, the town grappled with the question of whether justice had truly been served. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of the people involved in the case took different paths. Clara, who was found guilty of murdering her husband, David Lindes, now resides on death row, awaiting her fate. She spends her days in a small, cramped cell, surrounded by gray walls and a narrow window that barely lets in any light. The monotony of prison life is only broken by occasional visits from her lawyer and the never-ending ticking of the clock on the wall. Meanwhile, the suspects, witnesses, and investigators who were involved in the case have all moved on, trying to find solace and redemption. Dr. Dolly Lner, the toxicologist who was suspected of providing the poison used in the murder, has returned to her work at the prestigious Arizona Institute of Toxicology. She has been awarded a grant to continue her groundbreaking research on the effects of cyanide poisoning, which she hopes will help prevent similar tragedies in the future. Lisa Romanov Lindberg, David's former secretary and another suspect in the case, has moved to Utah, eager to leave the memories of the trial behind. She now works as a receptionist at a local law firm, trying to rebuild her life and distance herself from the events that unfolded in Gilbert. She recently self-published a memoir, detailing her eccentric belief that she is the descendant of both the Lindberg baby and Anastasia Romanov. As for the Lindes family, they are still trying to heal and rebuild their shattered lives. David's parents have established the David Lindes Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence and supporting victims. They organize fundraising events and collaborate with local shelters to provide assistance to those in need. Rert Rail was 44 years old. He worked as a real estate agent in Guelph, Ontario. He was very good at his job, known for being friendly and outgoing. Rick loved to make people laugh with his jokes and pranks. One of his most famous pranks was when he forced his wife, Carla, to get a haircut by getting her down to the floor and shaving off all of her hair. He posted a video of the prank on social media, and it went viral, getting thousands of views. This prank caused a lot of tension between Rick and Carla. Rick lived in a nice house in Guelph with Carla and their 2 kids in Sure and Wheels. Rick went to school in Guelph and later studied business at a local college. He married Carla when he was 30, and they had been together for 14 years. Rick's parents, Tom and Betty, lived nearby and were very close to him and his family. He also had a brother named Tim, who lived in Toronto. Rick was very active on social media, especially on Facebook and YouTube. He loved sharing funny videos and pictures of his life. He had a lot of followers who enjoyed his content. Rick was always thinking of new ideas for pranks and jokes to share with his audience. He liked to stay current with trends and often talked about popular shows and events, like Canadian Idol and hockey. In the days before his death, Rick was busy with work, meeting clients and showing houses. He was also planning more pranks and spending time with his family. Rick seemed happy and full of energy. He had a big personality and was always the center of attention at gatherings. Rick's dream was to become even more famous and successful. He wanted to grow his social media following and maybe even get his own TV show. He often talked about these dreams with his friends and family. Rick was a very driven person, always working towards his goals. Despite his playful nature, Rick cared deeply about his family. He wanted to provide a good life for Carla and their children.
However, the forced haircut prank had caused a big rift between him and Carly. She felt humiliated and angry, which led to a lot of tension in their home. This tension was still present in the days leading up to Rick's tragic death. On January 15, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was early in the morning, around 7:00 a.m. The sun was just starting to rise, but the sky was still gray. Carly Rert Rail, Rick's wife, woke up and went to check on Rick. She found him in their bathroom. He was naked and lying in the bathtub, which was filled with water. A hairdryer was in the water, and it looked like Rick had been electrocuted. Carly was in shock. She screamed and called 911 right away. Her voice was shaky as she tried to explain what had happened. She told the operator that her husband was not breathing and that it looked like he had been electrocuted. The 911 operator tried to calm her down and told her to stay on the line until help arrived. The first person to arrive at the scene was Officer Alan Carter. He was a local police officer who had been with the Guelph Police Department for 10 years. When he entered the house, he saw Carly sitting on the floor, crying and shaking. She pointed to the bathroom and told him that Rick was in there. Officer Carter went into the bathroom and saw Rick in the tub. It was clear that Rick was dead. Carly was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. The police were not sure what to think. They needed to find out more about what had happened that morning and whether Rick's death was really an accident or something more sinister. As news of Rick's death spread, the community was shocked. Rick was well known in Guelph, and many people couldn't believe that he was gone. His friends and family were heartbroken, and everyone wanted to know what had really happened in that bathroom on that cold January morning. The Guelph police arrived quickly at the Rert Rail's home on January 15, 2009. Detective Collie McKinney led the investigation. Detective McKinney was known for her sharp mind and had worked on many important cases in Guelph. She and her team immediately began to carefully examine the scene. The bathroom where Rick was found was very clean, except for the bathtub. Rick's body was in the tub, and the water was still. The hairdryer was floating in the water, and it was clear that he had been electrocuted. Detective McKinney thought the scene looked suspiciously neat, as if someone had set it up to look like an accident. Detective McKinney and her team used various tools to gather evidence. They took photographs of the bathroom and the rest of the house. They also collected fingerprints and any other physical evidence they could find. They tested the hairdryer to see if it was working properly and looked for any signs of tampering. The police talked to Carly Rert Rail first. She was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. She explained that Rick often played pranks and that he might have been trying to do something funny with the hairdryer.
However, the police found it hard to believe that Rick would risk his life for a prank. Next, Detective McKinney talked to neighbors and friends. They wanted to know if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that morning. Some neighbors mentioned that they had heard Carly and Rick arguing the night before. Others said that Rick had been acting strangely lately, posting more and more prank videos on social media. The police also looked into Rick's social media accounts. They watched the video of the forced haircut prank he had done on Carly. The video showed a laughing Rick pinning Carly down to the floor and shaving off her hair while she screamed and cried. This video had caused a lot of tension in their marriage, and the police thought it might be a motive for Carly to harm Rick. As they continued to investigate, the police found more evidence that suggested Rick's death was not an accident. They discovered that the bathroom floor was not wet, which could have caused Rick to slip. They also found some footprints that didn't match Rick's or Carly's shoes. This made them think that someone else might have been in the house that morning. Detective McKinney and her team worked tirelessly to piece together the clues. They used all the tools at their disposal, including forensic analysis and interviews with everyone who knew Rick and Carly. They were determined to find out the truth about what had happened in that bathroom on the cold January morning. The investigation was complex, and the police knew they had to be thorough. Every detail mattered, and they were determined to uncover the truth behind Rick Rert Rail's tragic death. The first suspect in Rick Rert Rail's death was his wife, Carly Rert Rail. Carly was 36 years old and worked as an interior designer. She was known for being very talented and creative, with a keen eye for detail. Her work was popular among high-end clients, and she had a good reputation in Guelph. Carly was usually calm and mild-mannered, but the forced haircut prank had pushed her to her limits. It caused a significant strain on her marriage and her relationship with her young children, Insure and Wheels, named by people on the internet as part of a publicity stunt. The police brought Carly in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Carly looked tired and upset, but she tried to stay composed. She explained that Rick's prank had humiliated her. He had shared the video of the prank on social media, and it had gone viral. Carly felt embarrassed and angry. Despite this, she insisted that she had not hurt Rick. She said that his death was a terrible accident. Detective McKinney asked Carly about the night before Rick's death. Carly admitted that they had argued. She was still angry about the prank, and Rick didn't seem to understand how much he had hurt her. Carly said that after the argument, Rick went to sleep in the guest room, and she stayed in their bedroom. But police also asked Carly about the morning she found Rick's body. Carly said she woke up early and went to check on Rick. She found him in the bathtub, with a hairdryer in the water. She was in shock and didn't know what to do, so she called 911. Carly's stories seemed consistent, but the police needed more evidence. To learn more, Detective McKinney and her team looked into Carly's background. They found that Carly had a clean record and was well-liked by her friends and clients. However, they also discovered that Carly had been under a lot of stress lately. The forced haircut prank had not only hurt her emotionally, but also affected her work. Some clients had seen the video and canceled their contracts with her. The police also examined Carly's social media accounts. They saw that she had posted several messages expressing her frustration and sadness after the prank. Some of her friends had commented, offering support and telling her to stay strong. The messages showed that Carly was deeply affected by what Rick had done. Despite Carly's claims that she was innocent, the police knew they had to consider all possibilities. They continued to investigate, looking for any clues that might prove or disprove Carly's involvement in Rick's death. They were determined to find the truth and bring justice to Rick and his family. The second suspect in Rert Rail's death was Mike Cavalcante, Rick's business partner. Mike was 40 years old and known for being very practical and business-focused. He was the serious one in their partnership, balancing out Rick's playful nature. However, Mike had become increasingly frustrated with Rick's lack of professionalism and the distractions caused by Rick's social media antics. One of Rick's pranks had even forced Mike to make out with Carly on camera, adding to his embarrassment. The police brought Mike in for questioning. Detective Carly McKinney led the interrogation. Mike looked calm but tired. He explained that he had been working hard to keep their real estate business afloat. The recent financial issues had put a lot of stress on him. He admitted that Rick's constant pranks and social media stunts were causing problems for the business. However, Mike insisted that he would never hurt Rick. Detective McKinney asked Mike about his relationship with Rick. Mike said that they had been friends for many years and had built their business together. He admitted that Rick's behavior had become more erratic lately, especially after the haircut prank. Mike said he had talked to Rick about focusing more on their business and less on social media, but Rick didn't seem to take him seriously. The police also asked Mike about his whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Mike said he had been at home, preparing for a meeting with a client. He had no alibi, but he seemed confident that he had nothing to hide. Detective McKinney found Mike's demeanor interesting. He was calm and collected, which made her wonder if he was hiding something. The police looked into Mike's background. They found that he had a clean record and was respected in the business community. However, they also discovered that Mike had been dealing with a lot of stress. The financial issues and Rick's antics were taking a toll on him. Some colleagues mentioned that Mike had expressed frustration with Rick's behavior and had even considered ending their partnership. The police examined Mike's emails and phone records. They found several messages where Mike had complained about Rick's pranks and the impact they were having on their business. In one email, Mike had written to a friend saying, "I don't know how much more of Rick's nonsense I can take." This showed that Mike was at his wit's end. Despite Mike's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider him a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew Mike and Rick. They needed to find out if Mike's frustration had reached a breaking point and if he had a motive to harm his business partner. The investigation into Mike's involvement in Rick's death was complex. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. The third suspect in Rert Rail's death was Emily Harris Kang, Rick's social media manager. Emily was 22 years old, ambitious, and very tech-savvy. She helped Rick grow his online presence and loved the thrill of internet fame. Emily enjoyed the benefits that came with managing a popular social media account, but her relationship with Rick was complicated. They had a secret affair, and Emily was jealous of Rick's wife, Carly. The police brought Emily in for questioning. Detective Carly McKinney led the interrogation. Emily looked nervous but tried to stay calm. She explained that she had worked closely with Rick for over a year. She helped him plan and post his prank videos, including the infamous forced haircut prank. Emily said that Rick was always full of ideas and that she was just following his lead. Detective McKinney asked Emily about her relationship with Rick. Emily hesitated but eventually admitted that they had been romantically involved. She said that Rick had promised to leave Carly for her, but he never did. This made her feel used and betrayed. Emily insisted that she cared about Rick and would never hurt him. The police also asked Emily about her whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Emily said she was at her apartment, working on new content for Rick's social media accounts. She provided her computer as evidence, showing the work she had done that morning. Detective McKinney noted that Emily's alibi seemed solid, but decided to dig deeper. The police looked into Emily's background. They found that she had always been a high achiever, excelling in school and earning a scholarship to a local university. Emily was very active on social media and had a large following of her own. However, they also discovered that Emily had a history of jealousy and had been involved in several heated arguments with other women over Rick. Despite Emily's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider her a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew her and Rick. They needed to find out if Emily's jealousy and frustration had driven her to harm Rick. The investigation into Emily's involvement in Rick's death was thorough. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. On January 20, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was around 10 o'clock a.m. when the police received a call from a neighbor of the Rert Rail's family. The neighbor had found something unusual while walking their dog near a park close to the house. The neighbor noticed a small hidden camera in the bushes and knew the camera hadn't been there before and called the police immediately. Detective Collie McKinney and her team arrived quickly. They carefully retrieved the camera and took it to the police station for examination. The team was surprised to find that the camera was still working and had recorded footage. They hoped it might provide new clues about Rick's death. At the station, the police reviewed the footage. It discovered that Rick had installed several hidden cameras around the house. He had set them up after the forced haircut prank, suspecting that Carly might try to get revenge. The footage showed the night of January 14 when Carly and Rick had a heated argument about the prank. Rick had accused Carly of being too sensitive, while Carly had expressed how humiliated and hurt she felt. The most crucial part of the footage was from the morning of January 15. The camera in the bathroom showed Rick entering the tub with the hairdryer. At first, it seemed like he was playing another prank. However, as Rick plugged in the hairdryer, he slipped on the wet floor and accidentally knocked the hairdryer into the tub, causing his own electrocution. The footage revealed that Rick's death was not a premeditated murder. Detective McKinney and her team were shocked by this discovery. They realized that Rick had set up the cameras to catch Carly, but instead they had captured his own fatal mistake. This new evidence changed the direction of the investigation completely. The police called Carly to the station to show her the footage. Carly was devastated and broke down in tears. She couldn't believe that Rick's death was an accident and not a result of foul play. Detective McKinney explained to Carly that Rick had set up the cameras because he was afraid she might retaliate for the prank. Carly was heartbroken, knowing that Rick had mistrusted her and that his actions had led to his own death. With this new evidence, the police were able to close the case. They informed the community and the media about the true cause of Rick's death. The community was relieved but saddened by the tragic accident. The investigation had revealed the truth, and the police have ensured that justice was served. When the police announced that Rert Rail's death was an accident, the community of Guelph, Ontario, was both shocked and relieved. The news conference on January 25, 2009, explained the events leading up to Rick's death. However, the authorities decided to proceed with a trial to bring all facts to light. The trial began in early February 2009. The prosecutor, Allen, 45, was known for his no-nonsense approach. He was determined to present all the evidence, including Rick's emails and the footage from the hidden cameras. Allen argued that while Rick's death was accidental, it was important to understand the full context and the events leading up to it. The defense attorney, Margaret Golly, 38, was equally determined to clear Carly Rert Rail's name. Margaret was compassionate and had a reputation for defending those wrongfully accused. She presented evidence of Carly's character and how the prank deeply affected her emotionally, but did not make her a murderer. During the trial, the courtroom was tense. Carly sat quietly, supported by her family. Rick's friends and family watched the proceedings, their faces showing a mix of sadness and relief. The prosecutor played the footage showing Rick slipping and knocking the hairdryer into the bathtub. This was the key evidence that confirmed his death was an accident. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On February 15, 2009, they returned with their verdict. They found that no one was guilty of murder and that Rick's death was indeed an accident. The judge echoed this sentiment in his closing remarks, emphasizing the tragic nature of the event and how it was a result of a series of unfortunate incidents rather than intentional harm. Carly's reaction to the verdict was a mix of relief and sorrow. She was grateful to be exonerated, but deeply mourned her husband. The community's response was supportive. Many people offered their condolences to Carly and her children, Insure and Wheels, understanding the emotional turmoil they had endured. The trial's conclusion brought a sense of closure to Rick's family and friends. They struggled with the loss but found some comfort in knowing the truth. Carly decided to move away from Gulf to start fresh with her children, hoping to rebuild their lives away from the memories of Rick's tragic death. The police officers involved in the case, especially Detective Collie McKinney, felt a sense of accomplishment for uncovering the truth. However, they also felt the weight of the tragedy and the impact it had on everyone involved. The trial's verdict and sentencing brought an end to the legal process, allowing everyone to begin the slow process of healing and moving forward. After the trial ended, the people involved in Rert Rail's case tried to move on with their lives. Carly Rert Rail, who had been cleared of any wrongdoing, decided to leave Guelph, Ontario. She felt that starting fresh in a new place would be best for her and her children, Insure and Wheels. In March 2009, Carly moved to Toronto, where she continued her work as an interior designer. She focused on rebuilding her life and creating a stable environment for her kids. Mike Chetelvecchio, Rick's business partner, was also deeply affected by the events. After the trial, he took some time off to reflect and reconsider his future. By mid-2009, Mike decided to step away from the real estate business. He sold his shares and moved to Vancouver to start anew, focusing on a different career path. Mike wanted to leave behind the memories of the stressful partnership and the tragic loss of his friend. Emily Harris-Kang, the social media manager, found it hard to cope with the loss and the scandal surrounding Rick's death. She took a break from social media to focus on her mental health. By the end of 2009, Emily had decided to pursue further education, enrolling in a marketing program at a local university. She aimed to rebuild her career with a fresh perspective and new skills. Detective Collie McKinney and her team continued their work in the Guelph Police Department. The case had been a significant challenge for them, and solving it brought a sense of accomplishment. Detective McKinney was praised for her thorough investigation and dedication to uncovering the truth. She used the experience to mentor new officers, emphasizing the importance of attention to detail and perseverance in solving cases. Rick's family and friends had mixed feelings about the outcome. While they were relieved to know that his death was an accident, the loss remained painful. They struggled with the fact that Rick's own actions had led to his tragic end. Over time, they found some comfort in remembering the good times they shared with him. The community of Guelph also felt the impact of the case. The news had shocked the town, but the trial and its conclusion helped bring a sense of closure. People were more cautious and aware of the importance of addressing personal conflicts and mental health issues. By the end of 2009, those involved in Rick's life had begun to heal and move forward. The case remained a reminder of how quickly life can change and the importance of compassion and understanding in difficult times. This case is a stark reminder of how quickly a practical joke can spiral into tragedy. Rick's playful nature and Carly's desperate reaction led to a heartbreaking series of events, forever altering the lives of everyone involved. Emily Kenyon was a 37-year-old woman who lived in West Palm Beach, Florida. She was known for being kind and caring, with a special love for snakes. She worked as a curator at a local reptile house, where she took care of different kinds of snakes. Her collection included pythons, boas, and even a rare green mamba. Emily also loved gardening and spent a lot of her free time tending to her plants and flowers. Emily went to the University of South Florida, where she studied biology. She met Marlin Kenyan there, and they got married shortly after she graduated. They moved to a cozy house with a big backyard, perfect for her garden and snake enclosures. Emily was close to her family, especially her younger brother named Brian, who worked as a teacher in Orlando. Emily was very involved in her community. She volunteered at the local animal shelter and helped organize charity events. She was a member of the West Palm Beach Garden Club and often shared her gardening tips with friends and neighbors. People described Emily as friendly, always willing to lend a hand, and full of life. In September 2003, Emily's life took a dramatic turn. She discovered that her husband Marlin was secretly married to another woman named Zara Pinck, who Emily knew as her gynecologist. This revelation shocked Emily. She revealed his bigamy to her close friend and co-worker Robert Banovac, who shared her love for snakes. Robert was worried about her and advised her to be careful. Emily decided to confront Marlin about his bigamy. She was determined to get answers and figure out what to do next. Despite the stress, she continued with her daily routines, working at the reptile house and tending to her garden. She even attended a community fair where she helped with the snake exhibit and enjoyed watching children's faces light up in amazement. During this time, Emily also learned that she was pregnant. This added to her emotional turmoil, but she was hopeful about the future. She planned to visit her brother in Orlando to talk about her situation and seek their advice. Unfortunately, Emily never got the chance to share her plans. Her life was cut short before she could find a resolution to the chaos brought by Marlin's betrayal. On the morning of September 10, 2003, West Palm Beach was overcast, with dark clouds hinting at rain. At around 7:30 a.m. Lindes, Emily Kenyon's neighbor, was walking her dog, Linda Hargrove Lansky, when she noticed something unusual. Linda often saw Emily working in her garden at this time, but today the backyard was eerily quiet. Linda decided to check on Emily. As she approached the backyard fence, she saw Emily lying on the ground near her favorite rose bushes. Linda immediately sensed something was wrong. She called out to Emily, but got no response. With growing concern, she opened the gate and rushed to Emily's side. What Linda saw was shocking. Emily was lying face down in a pool of blood. She had been brutally beaten, and a bloody golf club was lying nearby. Linda's heart raced, and she felt a wave of panic. She quickly pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911, her hands shaking as she spoke to the operator. Within minutes, emergency services arrived. Paramedics confirmed that Emily was dead. Linda, still in shock, was asked to sit down and try to calm herself. She could hardly believe what she had seen. The neighborhood soon filled with police cars and curious neighbors peeking from their windows, wondering what had happened. The news of Emily's death spread quickly. Local media, including the Palm Beach Post, reported on the incident, and residents of West Palm Beach were left in shock and disbelief. The community mourned the loss of a beloved member, and the police were determined to find out who was responsible for such a brutal act. On September 10, 2003, at around 7:45 a.m., the West Palm Beach Police Department arrived at Emily Kenyon's home. The sky was still overcast, with the threat of rain looming. Detectives James Avery and Avery Brooks were leading the investigation. They arrived quickly, knowing that every minute was crucial. Detective Avery, known for his keen eye and calm demeanor, took charge of the scene. His partner, Detective Brooks, was meticulous and methodical, always careful to preserve evidence. The backyard was now a crime scene, and a once beautiful garden looked like a battlefield. Blood was splattered on the grass and patio, and an overturned pot lay next to Emily's body. The detectives immediately noticed the golf club lying next to Emily. It was covered in blood and appeared to be the murder weapon. Emily's body showed signs of a violent struggle, with multiple wounds to her head and upper body. The scene was chaotic, with broken flower pots and scattered gardening tools, indicating a fierce attack. Forensic experts arrived shortly after the detectives. They carefully collected evidence, including the golf club, blood samples, and any possible DNA evidence. They took photographs from every angle, ensuring that nothing was overlooked. The crime scene unit also dusted for fingerprints on the golf club and nearby surfaces. Detective Avery and Detective Brooks began their investigation by speaking with Linda Ross, the neighbor who found Emily's body. Linda was still in shock, but provided a clear account of her discovery. She described seeing Emily lying face down in the garden and calling 911 immediately. Her statement was detailed and consistent, helping the detectives piece together the initial timeline. As the investigation continued, the detectives canvassed the neighborhood. They interviewed other neighbors, asking if they had seen or heard anything unusual that morning. Some neighbors reported hearing a loud argument late the previous night, but no one had seen anyone enter or leave the Kenyon property. Inside the house, detectives looked for further clues. They searched for signs of forced entry but found none. suggesting that Emily might have known her attacker. They also checked for any personal items that might be missing or disturbed. Emily's purse and cell phone were still in the house, ruling out robbery as a motive. Detectives Avery and Brooks knew they had to act fast. The evidence pointed to a personal motive, and they were determined to find out who had committed this brutal crime. They reviewed the evidence and prepared to question the people closest to Emily, starting with her husband, Marlin Kenyan. The first suspect in Emily Kenyon's murder was her husband, Marlin Kenyan. At 35 years old, Marlin seemed to have a perfect life. He worked as a successful financial advisor in West Palm Beach and was known for his charm and good looks. However, Marlin was hiding a dark secret. Marlin lived a double life. Not only was he married to Emily, but he was also secretly married to another woman, Zara Pinck, in Miami. Emily had discovered this secret just days before her murder, and it had caused a significant strain on their marriage. Even more shocking and unknown to both wives was that Marlin had a secret career as a gay adult film star under the name Ash Ketchum Krabs. Detectives James Avery and Avery Brooks brought Marlin in for questioning the same day Emily's body was found. The interrogation took place at the West Palm Beach Police Department. Marlin appeared calm and collected, but the detectives were determined to find the truth.
Marlin, can you tell us where you were last night?
I was in Miami on business. I stayed at a hotel. You can check.
Marlin, did Emily know about your other wife?
Yes, she found out recently. It's been hard on us, but I would never hurt her.
The detectives checked Marlin's alibi. He claimed to be at the Hilton Miami downtown, a well-known hotel, and records showed he had indeed checked in. However, the timeline was still suspicious. Marlin could have driven back to West Palm Beach, committed the crime, and returned to Miami. Despite his calm demeanor and alibi, Marlin's double life provided a strong motive. Emily's discovery threatened to expose him, and he had a lot to lose. The detectives found Marlin's calmness unsettling. It seemed almost too perfect, as if he had rehearsed his answers. They continued to question him about his whereabouts, his relationship with Emily, and his secret life. Marlin maintained his innocence, insisting that he loved Emily and would never harm her. The detectives knew they needed more evidence to prove his guilt. Marlin was released but remained under surveillance. Detectives Avery and Brooks continued to dig into his background, hoping to find something that would link him to the crime. They interviewed his coworkers, checked his financial records, and even spoke to his second wife, Zara, who was also in shock over the revelations. The case against Marlin was building, but the detectives needed a smoking gun. They hoped that the ongoing investigation would uncover the evidence they needed to bring justice for Emily. The second suspect in Emily Kenyon's murder was Zara Pinck, Marlin Kenyon's other wife. Zara, a 30-year-old gynecologist, was known for her dedication to her patients at a Miami clinic. She was compassionate, hardworking, and well-respected in her field. Unbeknownst to her, she was part of Marlin's secret double life. When detectives James Avery and Avery Brooks contacted Zara on September 12, 2003, she was shocked to learn about Emily's murder and Marlin's deception. She had no idea Marlin was married to another woman. The detectives drove to Miami to speak with Zara at her clinic. Zara welcomed the detectives into her office, looking pale and distressed. Zara's genuine reaction and cooperation made it clear she was as much a victim of Marlin's deceit as Emily had been. She provided the detectives with Marlin's schedule and any details she could remember about his behavior over the past few weeks. Despite her shock and sadness, Zara remained composed. She explained that she last saw Marlin on the evening of September 9. He left their home, saying he had a business trip in Miami. Zara had no reason to doubt him, but now she felt a deep sense of betrayal. The detectives asked Zara if she had any reason to believe Marlin might harm Emily. "No, I never imagined he was capable of something like this," Zara replied. "He was always so caring and attentive, but now I don't know what to believe." After the interview, detectives Avery and Brooks reviewed Zara's statements and alibi. They verified that she was indeed at work the night of Emily's murder, making it impossible for her to have committed the crime. However, her testimony provided valuable insight into Marlin's character and possible motives. Zara's heartbreak and anger at Marlin's betrayal were evident. She cooperated fully with the investigation, eager to see justice served for Emily. The detectives thanked her for her time and promised to keep her informed as the case progressed. With Zara cleared as a suspect, the focus returned to Marlin. The detectives felt they were closing in on the truth, but they needed more evidence to make their case airtight. They'd hoped that further investigation would reveal the final pieces of the puzzle. On September 15, 2003, 5 days after Emily Kenyon's murder, new evidence emerged. The weather that morning was sunny with a light breeze, offering a brief respite from the recent gloom. At around 9:00 a.m., Detective James Avery received a call from a local pawn shop owner, Henry Guanabeo. Henry reported finding a gold bracelet with Emily's initials engraved on it. Detectives Avery and Avery Brooks quickly drove to Turner's Pawn Shop, located on Clematis Street, a well-known shopping area in West Palm Beach. The shop was small but filled with various items, from old guitars to vintage jewelry. Henry handed the bracelet to Detective Avery, explaining that a man had tried to sell it 2 days ago. The detectives examined the bracelet, recognizing it immediately as one Emily often wore. Henry provided a description of the man, which closely matched Emily's close friend and co-worker Robert Banovac. The detectives knew they were onto something significant. They thanked Henry and took the bracelet back to the police station for further analysis. At the station, forensic experts confirmed that the bracelet belonged to Emily. They also found fingerprints on it that matched Robert's. The detectives felt they were getting closer to solving the case. Later that day, the detectives reviewed surveillance footage from nearby businesses around the pawn shop. They found clear images of Robert entering the shop, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. This footage provided a crucial link between Robert and the stolen bracelet. Detective Avery and Detective Brooks discussed their next steps. They decided to bring Robert in for a round of questioning. The new evidence was compelling, and they hoped it would pressure Robert into confessing. The third suspect in Emily Kenyon's murder was Robert Banovac, a 49-year-old close friend and colleague of Emily's in the snake-collecting community. Robert was known for his passion for reptiles and his deep, unrequited love for Emily. He had a history of mental instability and occasional violent outbursts, which put him on the detectives' radar. On September 16, 2003, a day after discovering new evidence against Marlin, detectives James Avery and Avery Brooks decided to interview Robert at his home. The weather was sunny with a few clouds, typical of a Florida morning. Robert lived in a modest house filled with snake terrariums and reptile-related memorabilia. Upon arriving at Robert's home, the detectives observed his nervous demeanor. He was a tall, thin man with glasses, appearing anxious as he led them into his living room. Robert and Emily had shared a close friendship, bonded by their love for snakes. They spent a lot of time together at reptile shows and events, which was well known in their community. Robert admitted to the detectives that he was aware of the problems in Emily's marriage to Marlin. Emily had confided in him about Marlin's other wife, leaving her deeply upset and uncertain about her future. This information gave the detectives insight into Robert's potential motive, as his unreciprocated feelings for Emily could have driven him to extreme actions. Robert's agitation grew as the detectives continued their questioning. His deep anger at Marlin for hurting Emily was evident, yet he maintained that he would never harm her. Despite his assertions, his unstable history and intense feelings for Emily made him a suspect. Robert's alibi for the night of the murder was weak. He claimed to have been home alone, tending to his snakes, but there were no witnesses to confirm his story. The detectives noted Robert's increasing distress as he expressed his regret over not being able to save Emily and his sadness over their unfulfilled relationship. Further investigation into Robert's activities revealed that he had visited Emily's garden the day after the murder. He insisted this visit was to check on her snakes, but the timing raised suspicion. Neighbors reported seeing Robert's car leave late on the night of the murder and returned early in the morning, contradicting his claim of being home. The detectives also delved into Robert's medical history, uncovering past treatment for depression and anger issues. His troubled past, combined with his intense feelings for Emily, painted a picture of a man who could potentially commit a crime of passion. Despite Robert's emotional state and suspicious behavior, the detectives needed more concrete evidence to determine his involvement in Emily's murder. They continued to monitor him closely while gathering additional clues to either implicate or clear him in the case. The breakthrough in Emily Kenyon's murder case came on September 18, 2003, when detectives James Avery and Avery Brooks uncovered critical evidence. That morning was overcast and humid, typical for West Palm Beach in late summer. The detectives had been working tirelessly, piecing together clues to identify the murderer. The new evidence emerged from an unexpected source, a neighbor's security camera footage. The camera, installed to monitor the neighbor's yard, had captured part of Emily's backyard. On the night of the murder, the footage showed Marlin Kenyan entering the backyard with a golf club. Moments later, it showed him leaving with blood on his clothes. Detectives Avery and Brooks reviewed the footage and realized they had the evidence they needed. The footage clearly placed Marlin at the crime scene with a murder weapon. The detectives prepared for Marlin's arrest, knowing it would be a crucial step in bringing justice for Emily. At 3:00 p.m., under a cloudy sky, the detectives arrived at Marlin's office. Marlin was in a meeting, discussing financial plans with clients. The detectives waited in the lobby, observing him through the glass walls. Marlin appeared confident and composed, unaware of the storm about to hit his life. When the detectives entered the room and announced his arrest, Marlin's reaction was one of shock and anger. He protested loudly, taking off all his clothes and insisting on his innocence. The detectives handcuffed him and read him his rights as his colleagues watched in stunned silence. Marlin's calm facade had finally shattered in spectacular fashion. Marlin was taken to the West Palm Beach Police Department for booking. During the interrogation, he continued to deny any involvement in Emily's murder. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The fingerprints and now the security footage painted a damning picture of Marlin's guilt. As Marlin awaited trial, the community grappled with the shocking revelations. Emily had been a beloved member of the community, and her murder left a void in many lives. The arrest of her husband, a man who had seemed so charming and trustworthy, was a harsh reminder of the hidden darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. Marlin Kenyon's trial for the murder of his wife, Emily Kenyon, began on December 1, 2004. The courthouse in West Palm Beach buzzed with media attention, drawing reporters from local news stations. The courtroom was filled with Emily's family, friends, and curious onlookers, all eager to see justice served. The prosecution was led by Carla Matthews, a 45-year-old seasoned attorney known for her relentless pursuit of justice. Matthews presented a strong case, starting with the shocking evidence. The security camera footage showing Marlin with a golf club, the blood-stained clothes, and the pawn bracelet with Emily's initials. She argued that Marlin's motive was to silence Emily after she discovered his double life and threatened to expose him. The defense attorney, Mike Travian, was a 50-year-old veteran lawyer with a reputation for defending difficult cases. Travian argued that Marlin was innocent, claiming the evidence was circumstantial and that Marlin loved Emily deeply. He suggested that someone else, possibly Robert Banovac, could have committed the crime out of jealousy and anger. Throughout the trial, Emily's family watched with a mix of hope and grief. Her parents, sitting in the front row, clutched each other's hands tightly, while her sister wiped away tears. The testimony of Emily's friends and co-workers painted a picture of a kind, loving woman whose life was tragically cut short. On December 15, after 2 weeks of testimony and 3 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom was silent as the foreman stood up to read the decision. Marlin Kenyan was found guilty of first-degree murder. Gasps and whispers filled the room, followed by tears and hugs from Emily's family. Marlin was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Emily's brother addressed the court, emphasizing the gravity of Marlin's betrayal and the impact on his family and the community. Marlin showed little emotion as he was led away in handcuffs, his once confident demeanor now replaced by a blank stare. The verdict and sentencing brought a sense of justice to Emily's family and friends. While the pain of losing her would never fully heal, they found solace in knowing that Marlin would pay for his crime. The community, too, felt a measure of relief, as the trial's conclusion marked the end of a dark chapter. After Marlin Kenyan was sentenced to life in prison without parole, the lives of those involved in Emily Kenyon's case slowly began to move forward. The trial, which had concluded in December 2004, left a lasting impact on everyone. Emily's family struggled to cope with her loss. Her parents found some comfort in their community and the support of friends. They started a scholarship fund in Emily's name at the University of South Florida, hoping to help aspiring snake lovers follow in her footsteps. Zara Pinck, Marlin's second wife, faced a different kind of challenge. Shocked and heartbroken by Marlin's betrayal and crimes, she decided to leave West Palm Beach and move back to her hometown of Trenton, New Jersey. Robert Banovac, Emily's close friend and colleague, struggled deeply with her death and his brief suspicion as a suspect. After the trial, Robert sought therapy to deal with his grief and mental health issues. Robert also continued to care for Emily's snakes, ensuring her legacy lived on through their well-being. Marlin Kenyan, now serving his life sentence, remained largely silent. His double life and the tragic consequences of his actions were subjects of ongoing discussions among his fellow inmates and the prison staff. His fall from grace served as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of secrets and lies. Emily Kenyon's tragic death had a profound impact on everyone involved. While justice was served, the pain of her loss lingered. The community's efforts to honor her memory and support each other highlighted the resilience and strength that emerged in the wake of such a devastating event.